Mhm. All right, I should be more ready than I am. Notes up. Okay. It is 6 p.m. I call this pre-council meeting of April 16th to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Edwards. Here. Councilmember Hill. Present. Councilmember Luna Lieve.
He texted and said that he was ill and would not be here.
Councilmember Best.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Thorpe.
Here.
And Mayor Green.
Here. Okay, I really apologize. I'm sitting here trying to get my notes all up here. All right, let's move on to the optional pledge of allegiance. A moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on to the agenda. I really hope no one has anything to add or subtract from the agenda, but are there any changes? Then I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Yes, moves to approve the agenda.
You can. Thomas seconds.
Well rested and back. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Okay, let's go to public comments for items not on the agenda. Steve, please.
Thought to your thought is actually. Thinking past the one. All right, well. I have quite a bit to say, but I won't be able to squeeze it in 3 minutes, so. I went to the last P and Z meeting. And I noticed, and I spoke about this, that 1794-130, it was objected that the section B increase up to 12 feet maximum building height be permitted. And I think that should be maintained. I think there should be that allowed, because not to have that defaults to the additional increase in building heights or gross density. And I think defaulting, I mean, allowing for that, I think we need to start thinking about what we want Leadville to be in the future. Now, my impression is that Joey and Tim are pro-growth as far as, sky's the limit. Whether that's right or wrong, that's my impression. Someone that is a realtor who's definitely, you want to make money on a building that's selling for 500,000 or one that's selling for $1.5 million. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's much difference there. So I think we need to think about what we're going to be doing in the outlying sections. And I think the building limitations of 35 foot, which is what we have now for height, plus an additional 12, and that 12 was done as an incentive to add things to that the city needs and wants. Okay, so that's 2 minutes, I think, went by. So I don't think we should leave this open to what kind of heights we're going to put outside the historic district, because then we're going to be having changes of administration and things like that. This is going to be heading into a rich person's enclave. And right now, middle-class people can't afford not only the rents, but mortgage. I don't think we should keep ballooning this out. I think it's time to maybe slow it down so that the middle class can regain footing here. So to allow this to be not to put a limit on what the height restrictions will be for, in this ordinance, I think doesn't serve the general public. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Duggan. This is Amy Hall. We might be familiar faces to some of you, but we just wanted to reintroduce ourselves as the new co-managers of Leadville Main Street. We wanted to thank City Council, Mayor Green, and staff for all of your support through these past years, and we really are super grateful. And we're just, I mean, you might be seeing more of us, and we look forward to keeping the program running, and that's kind of it. We just wanted to come say hello and inform you guys that we've made this change and we'll be representing the program.
Thanks for all you do for Leadville Main Street. We're excited to step from board members into this position as managers, and we've got lots to learn, and we're excited to grow the program, and bring some stability to the program, and just appreciate your ongoing support. That's all.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you guys. Are there any other public comments for items not on the agenda in the hall? How about online?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to me. I am again back here. I was here 2 weeks ago talking about the parking problem that I have, which is a snow removal problem. And I would like you to look into it and try to solve it. The problem is that the spaces that we keep free of parking for our use are abused by our neighbor, who is blatantly disrespectful and does not respect the established custom or practice for the parking. He's causing a problem when we have guests at our house, and he has parked up to 2 vehicles during the time when we have guests in front of our house, which is, just something that is asking for a problem or the revolt in the neighborhood. We are trying to follow all of the issues and suggestions by the Leadville, and trying to respect our neighborhood and be good neighbors. But this is something that really only you can solve. And I would appreciate if you could look into it. I sent everybody in the council email today, explaining the situation into more details. Please help to solve it before it gets to something like, more violent. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your email today. We will certainly discuss it. I'm gathering a little bit more information to try to address some of the statements that you made. So we'll be back in touch with you.
And
I appreciate that very much.
just for the minutes, sir, do you mind giving us your name for the minutes?
Yeah, my name is Marian Klein, and I have everything included in the email. The house that our Leadville house is at 216 East 10th Street. So Marian Klein, Klein.
Great, thank you.
216 East 10th Street in Leadville. Thank you.
All right.
Have a
Are
nice
there any
meeting.
other- Thank you. Are there any other public comments for items not on the agenda online? Andrew, I'm assuming that hand
That is mine.
yours, okay. All right. Well, let's move on. Presentations and discussions. So this first one is actually me. It is Leadville History Month, as you may have noted from Councilmember Edwards' really nice letter to the editor. And so I have a proclamation just making this formal. Whereas the city of Leadville treasures our history, our historical assets, as well as our people and the legends and stories we hear and read about. And whereas from Joseph B. Riggs to Henry Smith, from Abe Lee to Texas Jack, from Horace Tabor and Father Dyer to Oscar Wilde and Evelyn Furman, from Billy Irwin and the Leadville Blues to Bun Ryan, from George Zeitz to the Delaware Block and the Tabor Opera House, from Doc Holliday to Marshall Duggan, from Jesse McDonald to Carl Miller, from California Gulch to the Black Cloud and Climax Mines, from Carl and Donna Schaefer and the Old Church, from ski joring and boom days, from the Herald Democrat, from Ken Schwaber and Marilee Maupin and the Leadville Trail 100, from Kathleen Fitzsimmons and Bill Harrington and the Irish descendants of Leadville's mining glory days, and from Neil Reynolds and the House with the Eye. Leadville has produced legends, stories, and buildings that remain compelling today. And whereas we have preserved historical structures and we have lost some, and whereas our structures, our stories, and legends must be preserved in order to have a future as bright as our past, and whereas the city of Leadville wishes to honor our past. Now, therefore, I, Dana Green, Mayor of Leadville, do hereby proclaim that April 2024 shall be celebrated as Leadville History Month. Thank you. Our next presentation is regarding Leadville Race Series on changes for 2024. Tamara, I see you online.
Hey, everybody, my apologies. I'm with my father with a medical situation in Texas.
I'm sorry. Oh, I think she's frozen. Let's give her just a second.
Hello? Okay,
Tamara,
there we
you're
are.
kind of frozen. I think if you turn off your video,
Yep.
we'll hear your audio a little better.
Okay, we'll try that. So I apologize. I don't know what you caught from me, but I am apologizing for my not being in full human form in your presence. I'm handling a family medical situation in Texas. So thank you for the time, Mayor. Thank you for the time, council members. And I'm not sure who's there who could actually load the PowerPoint. I sent it over last week. Could somebody load it by chance? Yep, I see it maybe trying to come up. I can't see it, but okay, let me see if I can guess at what it says, because I can't see it from where I am.
1 second.
I'm sorry.
1 second, I should be able to.
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. The first thing you all will see are the dates. And I don't want to take too much of everybody's time, but you should be seeing the dates first. And while Andrew does that, I'll just, the hope for tonight was to kind of share what you're looking at as you see those permits come across your desk and what changes stand out that are large. The bigger, more significant changes for the season. Not a lot of them directly impact the city outside of hopefully reducing a need for resources a little bit in the city. The biggest change you'll see there that I think we're all aware of at this point is that the marathon now falls on June 29th as opposed to the second weekend of June. And the intention, if it stops snowing ever, was to reduce resources on Mosquito Pass across city, county, volunteers, all of that. And previously it has been on that weekend. So we put it back on that weekend. We're starting with mountain bike camp and run camp, marathon, then following there, you do have Expo on the Friday of that week, but everything else kind of falls in the same weekends that you would expect, but wanted to put those dates up there. Any questions on the dates? I'll push along and I'll just ask that question at the end of each slide. I'll try to see your hands, but now you're tiny in my lens. So if I miss you, please speak up. Andrew, if you could help me with the next slide.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
Sorry,
So the big things we were trying to address this year to the council members, you know, we had a lot of conversations and we've been deep in planning across multiple venues, all the way from many conversations, a couple of very specific kind of town hall meetings held in Twin Lakes, which is again, not a direct city issue, but it is to the degree that we see the traffic cross the city line as well. So the big issues we know have continued to be traffic congestion. Twin Lakes has continued to be an increasing issue. May Queen's a bit better, but we still had an issue out there. Silver Rush weekend, again, I don't think that falls right in the city purview, but it's important for us to understand that Highway 24 intersection at McQuethy has continued to be an issue. Next slide, Andrew. And these are the things that I'm going to try to quickly breeze through tonight, but just bring our awareness to. So as you read the permits, it all makes sense. Not the easiest thing to shift slides, maybe.
Sorry, I don't. Figure the button.
Or is it just on my screen? Maybe it's stuck on my screen and not yours.
It's not wanting to switch on my screen either. I do apologize for that.
No worries. So I'll just try to remember all of the way the slides laid out. You have them for your reference, and if you see something that stands out, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to address it. But the next slide, I think, was just sort of congealing those issues, and safety and response is our biggest concern around safety for the public, for the racers, but also more importantly for EMS to be able to get into and out of all of our key areas. Impact on the village, on the dam, impact on town. You know, we're going to continue. I think you'll see some of the changes. We're attempting to push everything to a very specific spot at Outward Bound. And then overall impact on our resources and attempting to address that issue as well. The next slide, I think when you can get to it, really just highlights Marathon. So I'm going to go by the events. Again, any questions so far? I can't see your hands, so just speak up. Great. Marathon, the biggest change here that will impact the city, and Tony, we held a meeting, Lori put together a meeting, thank you very much, with city roads and bridges, with city police. Lori Ty was able to attend with us with her perspective. I don't know if Lori, you're in the room tonight or not, but so we've talked through some of these things at that level, but now wanting to bring it to the council members. So race times, we changed from 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. to 6:30 to 9:30. So marathon starting at 6:30, heavy half starting at 9:30. The big reason here is to give us more of a window of time on Mosquito Pass between events and to decrease that overall impact on resources should we see an issue. We expect that now that we moved it from the second weekend, we start to move into that window where lightning and thunderstorms in the afternoon become a bigger concern. So we want to make sure, excuse me, apologize. We want to make sure to give as much room there without pushing them too far into the afternoon on the return. So the other piece that we've worked at here is to collaborate a little bit deeper with the sheriff's office. We were able to set up a relationship with Colorado Rangers to help with the law enforcement burden on many sides. So we'll have law enforcement to support throughout the events on lead outs, on key roads, in town and out of town, and significant traffic issues. So that'll be a piece that we hope to decrease the burden, knowing that right now we're working through some positive transition with the city in terms of beefing up the city police resources, but also recognizing that they have to be available for public attendance. We'll continue on the shuttle program with the marathon. That will look very much the same. We'll continue with the parking plan of pushing people to the outskirts and not downtown. And right now we have everything ready to launch for the 100s, which I'll talk about, but starting to discuss more and more, from the beginning around these issues of parking, impacts, littering, toilets, all kinds of things, in terms of how we want people to show up and be good humans in the backyard. So we have videos ready to go. We have the athlete guides for the 100s 4 months out, which is very different than it has been in the past. We have website updates. We have emails ready to go as well. not only with the athlete guides, but more prominent exposure to these changes. So as we walk through these, know that we are ready and poised to do much earlier communication. We're also working with Sarah Edwards and Betty Benson to put together a communication plan to put this out in advance. We talked with Lori and the team there about also making sure that when we get to the 100s, in case I forget this, that we would put flyers out on 6th Street a couple weeks out of each event on the 100 specifically to just give notice and give more warning around those pieces as well. So that's the big pieces on the marathon and a couple other things there. Anything on the marathon that comes out right now? Okay, next slide when you're ready, I think is the Silver Rush. And Silver Rush, again, doesn't impact you, the city necessarily directly, but it impacts all of us. And one of the big pieces we continue to see an issue with is McQuethy and 24 there. So we've worked with the county to put Colorado Rangers at that intersection to help front load that better. We're going to put signage much earlier from the north and the south to let people know what they're kind of coming into, both on Friday and Saturday. So Friday is not necessarily the big crazy day, but we'll have a lot of signage out there. And then Saturday and Sunday are the big event days. So early and often we'll have law enforcement out there to help us support that intersection and just reduce risk in that area. So those are the big pieces with Silver Rush. You'll see us back up high on Printer Boy, which is with that aid station, which is off of Toledo up on County Road 2. That will go back up there again, a county issue, but want y'all to be aware of it. We were down low because the road was closed due to a mine issue last year, but we have all kind of gotten together and talked through what we think is the safest and best, most efficient, effective place to be. And we'll be back up on top, which is kind of where it comes out from upper, you have two, oh gosh, I'm not going to get the right names of those trails right now, but just know that Printer Boy will be back where it usually goes. Any questions on Silver Rush right now? And let's bump into the real big changes that you're going to see this year. Moving into 100 mountain bike and 100 run. So 100 mountain bike is going to start to preview and help us phase into a change we're really shooting for, which is to decrease driving to Twin Lakes, both the dam and the village for both 100 events. Again, not necessarily does it seem directly related to city outside of everything backs up to the city, so it does. We've developed we've increased our partnership with Outward Bound, and we're going to be working at parking everybody in both events after the start. They can park out there starting earlier than the start of both events. We expect a lot of people to be at the start and then head out there, but we'll park them all at Outward Bound and have them from there shuttling from Outward Bound to Twin Lakes to help decrease that congestion and increase our safety out there, but also to decrease the overall burden of both the city and all the way out to that area. So we're hoping, you know, I see this as a 2-year culture of behavior change that's not going to be perfect this year, but we're going to get there. And this is a big change for us to limit the driving. So for the 100 mountain bike, there'll be a very small amount of driving that'll be corral based, just so we make sure that front of the pack, we get the humans out there to support their athletes with nutrition and hydration in the time frame needed to execute that. And also for us to be sure about, you know, we're going to take a lot of data from this year and learn about how we fine tune this for years to come. But essentially for the 100 mountain bike, you'll still see 3 corrals potentially driving out there, but you'll see the bulk, which should be 75, 80, 90% of the athletes or the crews not driving, but taking a shuttle. The Lost Canyon alternate is still open, but that's the big change here. The other big change is we've modified the course. So for the run, the 100 runs actually veers off, comes around the fish hatchery, and it veers off. We might have a picture of that. If you go to the next slide, Andrew, I'm not sure, maybe 2 down. I'm not sure where it is. It's somewhere in there. Maybe 3 down. Maybe it's not. There it is. So this section, what it's highlighting is the Outward Bound property. And this is actually how the run goes is through the outward bound property there, and to your left and above that to the north is the fish hatchery area, and that straight line is power line. So they come out of power line onto the pavement, come around the fish hatchery, and the run goes through the outward bound property like this. And this year we're going to put the mountain bike through that, and we're going to shift the folks being on the highway there, which is State Highway 300, until it hits County Road 11. So again, this is more of a informational heads up. We're going to have law enforcement there still to help protect that area and to learn, like, how does this go when we shift this so that the mountain bikers are going through here. We're also going to divvy it up a little more distinctly so that the aid station will be at the beginning towards the highway at the top there at the north end. And the crews will be pushed down south a bit further to really distinguish. We've had issues with, not issues, but definitely a lot of congestion with the crews in the in the aid station in the past, but also on the run, we see some crews out on the highway. So we want to deter that sort of mindset and that behavior. And we'll have law enforcement there to help us build that behavioral compliance that we want. So that's the other big course change here. This will be the first year we tried it. We expect it to go well, but also to see some pieces we can learn from and grow from. And then if you just back up a couple of slides, Andrew, if you're able to do that too. You know, our biggest pieces here, again, law enforcement increase. You're gonna see a lot more law enforcement from the dam, but also at Hagerman and Carter. So we've also had an issue out at Carter Summit in the past. And this is really, again, informational in the sense that we all get hit with emails. We all get hit with, why is this happening? And people don't know if they should go to the city or the county. So just helping us all understand the plan here. We'll see law enforcement at Hagerman at that of the Lake Road and Hagerman Pass. We'll see law enforcement up at Carter Summit this year as well, helping us kind of, again, build the culture of behavior that we want, which is not people parking up there, and helping protect both EMS access, but also the public access. There's folks who have property and other experiences they're trying to have, so wanting to protect that as well. CR10 will still see the same thing we did last year. For your information, again, this will be well messaged between Betty and Sarah and myself and multiple avenues. CR10 will close, very similar to how it did last year, which is only a very small section. I'd have to actually see it. I think it's Deer Trail and Panarch Drive. But that, again, just increases our safety. It also really increases our public awareness for the Panarch group to not get them find themselves in the midst of a bike race they don't want to be in the middle of. The other big change you're going to see this year is Twin Lakes and Lost Canyon. Specifically, we're going to reduce and sort of put a number limit on the crew members allowed. They will get a colored tag, a colored wristband, along with a parking tag that matches. So they get, Twin Lakes doesn't obviously, but Lost Canyon will get a single vehicle pass, and they'll get 4 crew member wristbands to go with it. And the idea here is, really, it came out of the run and recognizing we were just seeing this huge amount of humans in Twin Lakes, and us trying to think about, from all aspects, what is important in terms of how many humans each athlete needs to help them be successful at their event. And sometimes we're seeing 10 to 15 people. And we're hoping that this will help build a little bit of understanding also with our crews. Like, many times our crews are asking, what do I need to do? How do I do it? How many people do I need? Where do I go? How do I do this? And right now we're kind of building a Bible of giving them a very clear structure of, 4 people at Lost Canyon, 4 people at Twin Lakes. And really they don't need more than that. And to help them understand, you're not going to get from Outward Bound to Twin Lakes, no matter who you are. You'd have a better shot with our shuttle system right now than you did with everybody driving. But you're not going to get from these places. You can get out to Twin Lakes for the day, and then probably, you're not going to necessarily get to Twin Lakes outbound, but you're not going to get to Twin Lakes outbound, inbound, and then to Outward Bound. So helping our folks with this piece as well. So again, 4 crew members allowed at those 2 places. Outward Bound will have a single parking tag, but only 4 crew members allowed there as well. Pipeline will rate. So big change here with the mountain bike. Outward Bound will suddenly become the primary aid station, where Pipeline would have been 29 years going. This would have been the 30th year. Pipeline will become the alternate. But again, now what we've created is an alternate to Outward Bound and an alternate, we have an alternate in place with Twin Lakes. So a little bit more spread out, hopefully, and decreasing the congestion. Andrew, next slide, please. Any questions so far? Did somebody start to say something?
No, no questions.
Okay. The other piece is we're going to stick, Lori and Tony and I discussed this, and Officer Ortega discussed this a little bit. We're going to stick with the truck route plan that we had last year, and that's pretty well established at this point. It's been used in multiple events, so nothing big changing there. We're working through a dump truck availability for 0500 to 0700 on the race day of mountain bike. So those pieces will kind of stay in play the way they've been. You will see a bomb squad. You will see at our expo. Again, expo is Thursday and Friday of mountain bike week, so that's August 8th and 9th. That'll all be within the expo lot and 6th Street. Those closures are the same as they were last year. I think we got it cleaned up a little bit to look more accurate in the actual permit request. I think I actually did some addendums after our meeting and sent that back over, and hopefully we have that all in place as well. So that should all look much more accurate. And Tony and I chatted about right times to get signage up and how to best support that, which is part of what elucidated the idea of let's get flyers out up and down 6th Street, particularly that first 100 block of 6th Street, saying, hey, you know, we know that from Chief Chavez while he was interim chief, that we saw some issues, and we've seen them for 30 years on that 6th Street area with some of our residents who are newer or just not a fan of the races. And so helping create more communication early and often. The other thing you're going to see that's not on these slides. So on Friday afternoon, the expo is done at 5 o'clock. We're going to pull those toilets from the expo over to Harrison and to 6th Street. And we're going to have 10 toilets along Harrison and 10 toilets along 6th Street for the start on Saturday morning to help decrease issues we've seen there around toilet usage, urinal in people's property. And we're going to pull the K to make sure that those toilets are accessible and see if we can sort of deter that behavior a little bit. Also talking with the sheriff a bit about, you know, where necessary, we have officers in place to help write citations if we need to actually curb that behavior. We've got to make a change around where people are going to the bathroom. We understand that people are anxious and stressed and feel like anything goes when they have to go to the bathroom, and their race is so important. We don't necessarily always think that, but we're going to do our best to help them have better behavior around that this year. So that's the other big change you'll see. So I think that covers most of the 100 mountain bike questions, council members around the 100 mountain bike.
No questions.
Great. Moving on to the 100 run, I'll try to wrap this up. We're not going to see major things shift here. Everything I just said applies to the run as well. So no driving to Twin Lakes Village. This is a slower event, so we have less issues around getting people out there, but we're going to drive everybody from Outward Bound to Twin Lakes. We also don't have anybody driving further south than that, which is great. We're going to, I think this is where we're going to see the biggest impact with this change is around the run. And we needed to see it. It was becoming impossible. So again, no driving. We'll have everybody taking a shuttle from Outward Bound. We'll see. The big thing I want to just impress upon all of us is we're definitely going to see traffic for the first few hours of both mornings. The good thing is it's 6:30 to 8:30 on Saturday morning. It's 4:30 or 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. on the other Saturday a week later. Not the highest traffic times. We'll see that traffic backed up until we get people settled into Outward Bound. But I think once we have them settled there, you know, the hope and the perspective, we're going to learn, but the hope and perspective is suddenly we don't have so much traffic on 82, which also decreases our impact. We were getting feedback all the way from Pitkin County this past year especially. And so wanting to address that. So no driving, Outward Bound only, shuttles only. I think much easier with the run. We're definitely beefing up a lot of support around the mountain bike because it's a much faster event to execute that. The other piece that will change is we won't see crews at all at May Queen this year in the morning. We went to shuttle only for crews last year. Now we're going to say, you know, if you're running 100 miles, perhaps you can get to 13 miles without your crew there, and hopefully you can get to Outward Bound. And we'll have the aid station beefed up out there, but no crews out to Mayqueen to really protect that emergency access, to protect the public, to protect the experience for all. And then in the evening, we'll allow them back in. That will be law enforcement supported. That will be through the Colorado Rangers. We have those folks in place and ready to go. They will manage that. It will be unidirectional, clockwise around the lake. That's what we put in play last year. So that's what you'll see again. Again, we'll see Twin Lakes Village and Mayqueen with 4 crew members only, single parking tags only for Outward Bound and for Mayqueen in the evening as well. That should not say and Lost Canyon because it's not for Lost Canyon in the 100 run, which is kind of funny. But it will be for Outward Bound, a single car tag. And again, Pipeline even in the run becomes an alternate. You know, we have a big party that goes on out there. I'm pretty sure Sterling is the impetus for that. I think he starts it on his own property, which is great. But you'll see crews at both areas. We're excited to do some live coverage from Outward Bound and kind of increase that. And then you'll see Mayqueen open up, as we said, but it'll be a single parking tag and it'll be 4 crew members only. I'm not sure what the next slide is, Andrew. Any questions so far, team?
I have one, Tamara. Hi.
Yeah.
Cisco. Hey, I know this isn't related to the city, but will the traffic be increasing on 300 if things are central, kind of concentrating on Outward Bound?
Like I said, you know, Councilmember Cisco, I think like what we'll see is it will be increased for that first couple hours in the morning, but I actually think it will decrease significantly after that. The plan is once we get them out there, and I think the good place to be with that is having that increase from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Saturday morning of the run. And then everybody's situated out there, and then everything will actually probably decrease quite a lot.
And will I'm wondering how the Lake Fork neighborhood might be impacted. Like, do they have access to be leaving via 300 to get to work for folks who need to leave to work on Saturdays and such?
Well, the plan is to also communicate with them directly and bring flyers. Thanks for bringing that up. So we'll have flyers going out to those folks directly and having probably door-to-door conversations with them. And honestly, I think you're going to see the issues decrease overall, right? Once we get everybody situated in that 2-hour window, then you don't have all that traffic hanging out there during the day because we're kind of decreasing it overall for both events. So what I anticipate is, and what we've discussed is a need to communicate early with folks out there and have conversation. I've done 2 town hall type sessions in Twin Lakes, and now we're going to set one in town here and do one with our locals here. Probably the beginning of May is kind of the date we're looking at. Probably thinking the old church, we might do freight, but the bottom line is going to go and invite those folks directly to come join us to make sure that we've hit all those nerves and hit all those issues that we need to be aware of.
Thanks.
Yep. Other questions there so far? The other thing we discussed, this is actually potentially X'd out for this year and we don't have to worry about it. But in terms of helicopter, adding this to the communication, and we'll do this that 2-week out window so that we let people know if there is going to be a helicopter. By that point, we'll be for sure. Right now, it looks like we will not have a helicopter, thank goodness. But it will land only at the airport. It will need to be compliant with all the FFA rules, and we will make sure to get that communication out early and often across from town all the way out. So that would include the Lake Fork area, but also the Lost Canyon area as well. And that's really all I've got right now. Other questions for me?
Tamara, I have well, first of all, I've long appreciated your responsiveness to both voiced and perceived or anticipated impacts from the race series. I think there's been such an improvement both in the experience for the athletes and for the residents of town. And I think that these changes that you've proposed are gonna continue that, that path of improvement. So I really appreciate the work you've put into this. I'm secretly or maybe openly pleased to hear that the helicopter is maybe not
Me too.
an issue for this, but just in case, because this was the thing that was probably, you know, at least that I received most of the complaints and concerns about. So in the event that it becomes a possibility, I would request a lot of clarity in the permit that, first of all, would detail the helicopter's plans for aircraft deconfliction. In other words, because we have Flight for Life coming in, sometimes, and they come right over town and land at the hospital, so I would want to see the helicopter's plans for, you know, have they reached out to the various MedLife companies that come into town? How do they plan their communication and interaction to avoid any potential in-air collisions? The other thing is that the FAA rules and regulations for helicopters are really pretty flexible and squishy because helicopters have such a unique role in many cases where they do have to be over populated areas or landing at hospitals and such. And so I would like the minimum altitude spelled out very clearly. I would suggest 1,000 feet, since Leadville is doesn't seem like a congested area to people, say, who are accustomed to Denver, but really in terms of populations, it is a population center. And I think one of the concerns last year was that the helicopter was too low. And so I would suggest a very clear spelled out, what is the minimum altitude? What is the minimum hover time or maximum hover time? Things like that, just so that if we do go into a discussion of the helicopter, that we have very clear plans laid out.
Mayor Green, would it be amenable to you, like, let me try in the next week or two to confirm the reality of that, but I wonder, like, what makes sense to me is to have you, myself, the BOCC, or a member of the BOCC who can represent, and Josh from the airport sit down together and make sure we all agree on those terms. And that
Yeah.
that's agreed upon in advance. And, you know, I would expect that Josh is representing the airport, gets all that input, the BOCC member is getting all the input from the BOCC, and that you would be getting it from the city, and that then we're all aligned. And I would want to make sure I'm 100% with you. And who knew in my world that I would ever be trying to organize a helicopter at this level, but given that that's a reality that showed up last minute last year, I'd like to, if that works for you, I think that makes sense to me, to make sure we have all the voices at the table and do a singular, like, what are we agreeing on around this? Because I think it's a unique situation that hasn't shown up a ton outside of Flight for Life. And we haven't had to execute understanding what those parameters are. And I'd love to use the race series as a model for us to understand it moving forward for other events who might try to do it, and just get that hammered out.
What is the helicopter for?
Live coverage.
And where did it fly last year? What
Pardon?
happened last year? What happened last year with it? I must have missed it.
Well, we had multiple scenarios. It happened last minute. I was asked to get clearance for the helicopter. From the city side, we actually had talked through it. And I think to the degree that we understood it at that point, had support, and with the county began to understand that, you know, this is just one of those overlapping issues where we need everybody at the table to understand what those parameters are. Like Josh and the airport and the FAA, is it FAA? I always get those backwards, FFA and FAA, but whichever, flight administration that helicopter needs to, its flight plan. Helicopters are weird, like you said, Mayor, you know, in terms of, it is very squishy in terms of their ability to kind of what the structure and parameters are and what those rules are. And honestly, the way that that's set through the flight administration is pretty open to a large degree, but where we have room to kind of look at that and say what fits for our city and county, is ceiling height in terms of what's appropriate for the city. There is an FAA ruling on that, which is actually a little lower than 1,000 feet in my understanding. That doesn't mean we need to live with that, but that's why I want to make sure we get all the people together and we work out a plan that we all agree on. And then I can push that forward and force that from my side with a little bit of support in that kind of arena, I think.
Thank you, Tamara. I'd be totally open to that meeting. And thank you
Great.
for the presentation. Are there other questions or comments for Tamara?
Will we be getting a permit application soon from Lifetime?
You already have them. They were
Yeah.
submitted on March 30th.
So
We'll see.
we have them, and so what we found worked really well last year was that we did several meetings in advance of the council getting those permits for review and approval. So what we did that worked really well is we had an internal staff meeting with Tamara and walked through everything to make sure staff was on board with everything that was being proposed before it was presented to the council. So we've had that meeting, as Tamara mentioned, we've had that meeting. Tamara's idea was to come and present tonight to talk about some of the changes so that you all would have a chance to digest those changes. And then if we don't need it, but right now we have a presentation scheduled again for your questions regarding the TUP, and then we have them the TUP scheduled for approval the following meeting. So that's how we did it last time. Rather than just put all the TUPs in the packet and have Tamara come present, we realized it was a really long meeting if we did it that way. So this way we know that staff is good with everything, and then you all have a chance to digest the permits. So those will come up for a presentation for the next meeting, and then you'll vote on it the following meeting.
And Lori, can we go ahead and get those in their hands now? Might make sense to get those permits so they can start to review them in their hands this week.
Sure. I mean, we could also send them out with the packet materials, so we can do it both ways.
Your guys' call, just asking. So it's whatever y'all think is best.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Am I good to go? Am I out of here?
You're good to go. Thank you,
Thanks,
Tamara.
everybody. I really appreciate the time, y'all. Thank you.
All right, fitting quite well with Leadville History Month is our Historic Preservation Commission awards.
All right. We'll share my screen. All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, I'm Chip Lachance, Planning Director for the City of Leadville. So we have 6 projects that the Historic Preservation Commission would like to recognize, and most of these projects were completed in 2023. They range from complex renovation projects to simple repainting projects, but all of which are important for the care of our historic district. And also, I'm sorry, this was my introductory slide, so sorry about that. So the first project is the famous building, the famous restaurant and apartment building. This was an extensive exterior and interior renovation, as most of you know. I think this was a fabulous project. I personally did the final inspection on this project for compliance with the COA. There was actually one modification that was made from the approved plans that we talked about with the contractor on the rear of the building. It was metal siding, metal paneling was installed on, it's not shown in this picture, on a rear portion of the building. But it actually was, we reviewed it for the compliance with the design standard before we signed off on the COA. And I'm sorry, the certificate of appropriateness, and the metal actually distinguished the non-historic portions of the building from the historic portions of the building. So it was actually in compliance with the design standards. So this project was reviewed in detail, and they renovated this project to all of those very details. And I think this is a project we can all be proud of. The next project, second project, is 115 East Fifth Street. This is the old assayer's office. And this was a siding replacement project. And I believe, I believe perhaps windows as well. And, just so basically an exterior renovation project that we wanted to recognize. Third project is the repainting of St. George's Episcopal Church. And the fourth project is not just repainting, this was also interior and exterior renovations to the what's commonly known as the Pink Church building. And I believe the property owners for this are actually in attendance tonight. Welcome to if you want to have any comments to them after this, I'm sure they'd love to hear it. And then starting to wrap up here at 200 West Sixth Street, this house received a foundation stabilization, which is very important for the structures in our historic district. A lot of them are constructed with mud sill foundations. Installing a concrete foundation underneath the historic house is a complicated, expensive project to undergo, but it's extremely valuable in the preservation of our historic structures so that they can last for a much longer time. And then finally, again, just a repainting project. This is at 130 West Sixth Street. And as you can see, this house has its original historic lap siding. And so like many of these repainting projects, just constant exterior maintenance can be painstaking, but is extremely valuable in the preservation of the exterior facade materials and just the overall character of the property in our historic district. So that wraps up. Any questions on these projects? Yes.
As a current occupant of 115 East Fifth, I just wanted to recognize that they did extensive interior renovations as well, and it's an amazing job they did primarily upstairs.
Great, thank you.
These are such great projects. I mean, you're right. Every improvement just elevates the character of Leadville, and I'm really deeply appreciative.
And it should be noted that some of these projects were actually completed prior to the ordinance last summer that now requires exterior modifications and additions to historic structures or to structures within the historic district to go through a COA process. So some of these projects were completed voluntarily and they were they were completed successfully in compliance with design standards, even though we did not have a permit requirement. So that is noteworthy.
I do see Amadeo up on the screen. Did you want to say anything about your work on the Pink Church, which is so lovely?
Oh, I think you're on mute.
Oh,
Oh, still on mute. But we can't hear you yet.
Oh, there we go.
good.
We can't hear you yet.
This unmuted.
Unmuted, just not.
How about
no
now?
volume.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yay.
Now you can hear me. Okay, good. So I wanted to say it was a very easy project. Only took 12 years. We ran out of money. I ran out of money 5 times. Those windows cost more than a loft in Denver to restore. And I got much older than I was when I bought that thing. And and besides, Bill Korn got the temple, and I really wanted the temple, but he got it before me. So now I have to do the church. But I was hoping to find some gold in the crawl space, but unfortunately we couldn't find any nuggets. So it was a bit of a hair-raising situation, but with the help of several people that helped me with design and colors and what have you, and a lot of people involved. We got some excellent local contractors that did a great job, such as Carlos Plumbing and Pro Electric and Guzman Insulation. So the the properties of the church are very high in terms of thermal insulation, and the comfort level inside is extraordinary because we have blown insulation, actually not blown, foam insulation that completely wraps up everything, the roof, the sides, the crawl space. So with the radiant heating, one really feels very comfortable, even at very moderate temperature. You don't need to heat it up. If you heat it up at 66, 68 degrees, it's plenty. So I'm very happy with the thermal properties of the church, and now I'm trying to recoup some money with the short-term rental. It's been a bit, not in the beginning, it's a bit hard, but we have had quite a few renters already, and we hope to have more that can enjoy the races and have a nice place to be for the races. And hopefully I hope that by next year, I can at least break even on my expenses, on my current expenses.
Well, thank you so much for your dedicated work. I always felt that structure had so much potential, so I really love to see it thrive. And
Thank you.
congratulations on your award.
Thank
All
you.
right, let's move forward to the community center progress reports.
And I'm driving this, so just let me know the
Yeah.
advanced slides.
Cool. My name's Lauren Barrett, for anyone that doesn't know me, and the city hired me to work on this project specifically for the community engagement piece, but you'll see we're moving into the next steps from there. So I'm just here to give you all an update and then take y'all's feedback and questions as well. So I'm gonna talk about the project planning outline. I'm gonna mostly talk about the community engagement. That's the piece that has the most to report out on. That's what I've been focusing on. Give a little bit of an update on the inspection status, so what we've learned about the building, what needs to get fixed, things like that. And then what I believe to be the next steps on this project. Go ahead. So there is an image that I made that's sort of my guiding process of what this will look like for the next few months. In 2023, we bought the building. That's a big moment. So that's in green. The other part that's in green that goes through May is the community engagement interviews. That's what I'll be telling you all about today. Everything that's in yellow is stuff that we've started. So we've started the inspections. We're starting to get quotes. I just sent out an email to a bunch of folks to join the advisory committee, which will be a group that makes decisions together on and advises what should happen in this building. So it's not like just me or just you or any specific group of people, but a community process. And then in red are things that will be coming up, but we haven't started yet. The UTAP, that's the university students, the architecture students who will be rendering us up some examples of what could go in that building. I know it's in red, it looks like, oh, they haven't started. They actually have. They've rendered up a lot of things, but it's in red because I haven't seen it yet. So as far as I'm concerned, that part of the project hasn't happened. We haven't started any repairs yet. We will be planning a community-wide town hall to get feedback on the process. Hopefully, it might be more towards June, beginning of summer. And then the fundraising and grant writing, which will likely be a big question for everyone today and in the future, like how do you pay for it? And that is to come as well. So the community engagement outcomes you have in your package, but also up on the screen. I met with 91 people over the last 2 months. There's some bullet points of the kinds of folks I met with. So lots of nonprofit sector folks, county employees, youth groups, education institutions, and community experts. About 10% of them were seniors, 51% of those folks were youth, and 12% of the adults interviewed were Latina. A lot more of the youth also were, but I didn't ask that question in the interview, so I can't report on that. So here are the main things that came out of those interviews. Number one, the main thing that everyone seems to be asking for is this desire for unstructured space for youth and families. Where this comes from, I think we have in our community in Lake County, a lot of activities for young people, but it's very structured. It's the after-school programs, it's the Rockies Rocks programs, it's through the rec centers programs, and those are all fabulous. In addition to that, people want to have somewhere they can just go and hang out and be indoors and hang with their friends. That's what we're hearing from youth, but also families with little kids. And if you know, we just don't have a ton of that. Like if it's the middle of winter and you want to go be with your friends, especially if it's after 5 p.m. and you don't want to be in the bars, where do you go? So some examples of that could be a space with more open gym time, just hangout space. You can see from the pictures some examples of what that could look like. Place that has pool tables, it's not a bar, place where you can do video games, and weight rooms, and some kind of drop-in entertainment. I pulled 2 pictures there just for some examples. One is a Whistler Youth Center, it's another mountain community. And then the one below that is in Beaver Creek, which is a youth-specific, like, club bar zone. It's like all for the teen space. So that's something I'll be researching too as an example. And then the next one is something unique and fun to do together. So in addition to just having some hangout space, some sofas, people are asking for something like above and beyond, something fun and exciting that's not just sofas. So some examples that came up a lot was movie theater, arcade, bowling alley, and roller rink. So those are 2 examples there just to show how a large gym space could get converted to meet some of those needs. And we know that that's the space we have, and we'll be looking at specs of that too later. Art space came up quite a few times. So that would be like setting aside a specific place where you could host art workshops, have open hours for unstructured art creation, a place to host dance classes, for example, or a maker space. And then I was just gonna point out really quick the pictures over there, kind of some examples of what a room like that could look like. And then the next one, rentable space. This came up quite a bit as folks were thinking of it as a place to host events and for their families. So that could be birthday parties, it could be recitals, it could be performances, quinceañeras, things like that. People are really excited about the potential of having a big open space that would be rented for a personal private events. We also have a prep kitchen in the building that could be used. So that coupled with a large event space, using the stage, or also having nonprofit space or community space that could be rented. The other benefit for that has come up a lot is that folks are like, well, how are you gonna pay for this? What are the operational costs of this? So one of the many things to consider is having some sort of revenue coming in through the renting of certain spaces that can help supplement the operational budget of the building. Next one. Food, everyone wants food, everyone agrees you wanna have food, so some sort of like capacity to rent or to buy food in the space. That could be as simple as these beautiful pretzel and nacho machines. We don't have a cooking space, it's a prep kitchen. But it could also look like someone in the community deciding they wanna package up some more healthy meals and be sold there, so some opportunities. Other important considerations aside from just the top things that came out of it is hours. So it's really important that this building have hours that are open late. The after 5 p.m. time is a lot of the times when we have nothing else open. Having a separate space for youth or separate youth hours. So a lot of teens are saying like, oh, we don't go there because the parents are there or the little kids are there or etc. So that's something really important to consider in the planning and designing. And then lastly, staffing needs will be huge, I think. We're gonna have to think about how are we gonna staff it with the right kind of people that know how to be around youth and also that are willing to fill those late hours. I think we have spaces right now that could be used as youth centers, but we don't have people who wanna work those later hours. So that's something we really need to think hard about now in the planning process. Questions on that part before I move on? That was kind of a big share out.
You said there's a prep kitchen in the space currently. What's the state of it?
The whole building is in a state of needing some love, I'll just say. There's a lot of equipment in there, and I can't tell you, like, as I'm not an expert in knowing like whether some of that would be reusable. But the room and the walls, it's all there, it's like spaced out, it has like access to be able to build off of, but everything in there needs like quite a bit of like love and No, another way. Yeah, I don't know.
Work.
Yeah, and also with the prep kitchen, like, we're not installing a lot there, we're just making sure that everything is safe, that you have refrigerators, that you have kind of like the stuff set up, but, there's a big sink, right, there's a bunch of plates and cups, and so there's some potential to just.
So how would you compare it to the one on the back of the full circle building?
The new one they put in, it's not even close to that. Yeah.
I meant in terms of size.
Oh, in terms of size, oh, it's much bigger than that. Yeah, sorry, I meant in terms of, I'm like, that one's in use.
Yeah.
I would say in size, it's maybe like, from like here all the way to you.
So there's so potential for a commercial kitchen.
It could be, yeah. Now, we do already have a commercial commission kitchen at St. George that, we could promote more, and the cost to turn it into a commercial kitchen would be quite high, but not impossible. That's a decision we have to make in terms of funding priorities. I doubt that it will become the funding priority to turn it into a commercial kitchen, just because you'd have to then maybe give up on building other things when you're making decisions, but there is potential for it. Other questions?
When you were talking with people who would be using the space, such as youth or families, did you discuss, like, would they be open to paying for the activities, like if it were an arcade and they had to pay, putting coins into games, coins into pool tables,
Yeah.
pay kind of like, and there could be resident and non-resident rates or something, but did you discuss that element with folks?
Yeah, a lot, actually. I think that I wanted to communicate to people that we do want to have it be a space that's for the community, but also to like have in your mind, this isn't something that, like, this has a large cost. And in some way, we have to figure out how to recoup that. And most people, youth and adults alike, were like, well, we would pay for some of it. So I think there is definitely the will for maybe certain kinds of activities to be paid for. Other things, maybe the hangout space is free, but other parts of the activities would be paid for. You put on a special event with roller skating, maybe it's $5 or something like that. And I think also, I did hear quite a bit, oh, what if you had like a membership, right? A locals versus a non-locals membership to utilize certain spaces for free, and then other spaces would be part of your membership. So I think that, yes, there is interest and willingness to pay, so the community feels like they have buy-in.
And if I can just add to that, we've talked about that, Ms. Barrett and I have talked about that, where if you think about it in terms of like public transportation, it's important to have some type of cost to it, but it never recoups the full cost of providing the service. So, if you look at someone who says, I pay bus fare, it doesn't recoup the entire cost of running a bus system, but it's important to have a cost that doesn't prohibit from people using the service, but it does offset some of the costs. So realistically, it'll offset some of the costs, but we will need to come up with a funding plan that provides ongoing operational funds.
And I would add to that too, another question I asked quite a lot of folks just to get the conversation going is what do you leave Leadville for? Like, what kind of entertainment is taking you away?
Yeah.
And they're listing off things like what's on here, and they're spending money both in gas and in entrance fees for that. So across the board, including the youth that we think somehow have no money, but they do, right? They are somehow getting themselves to other communities, to go to arcades, to go to movies, to go to Topgolf. So there is money like moving out of the community for entertainment that we could potentially keep here if we offered activity. Any other questions? Okay, so on the building inspection status, I just wanted to show you all a few pictures of what it looks like in case you haven't been in there. That first picture is just the layout of the bottom part of the building. Hopefully you can zoom in if you have a picture of that on your screen to get a look, but that big building, the big part in the middle is the gym, which you can see in the picture there. That's the auditorium. That's okay. So the gym looks like that. It's a very big space. It's beautiful. It has a little bit of a mix of old gym and high-class convention going on. With the chandeliers, the silk curtains, but then there's a big floor with the panther on there. So that.
And
is
you
the
know,
build-
I was just gonna say that's sort of emblematic of Leadville, isn't it? You know, we're probably the only gym in the country that has chandeliers in it.
That pretty much obviates something like basketball.
Yeah.
So that space is the biggest part, and I think that's up for the biggest piece of discussion, and, because it's such a big space. And then if you zoom back out, the other sort of like larger space is the auditorium, which that's not a fabulous picture, but it's what I've got. It's got sort of like, used to be like maybe a band room.
And
There's,
does that connect to the gym?
yeah, it's all connected. So when you very first walk in, if we zoom out to the other picture there, I want just a
Oh,
little
yes,
bit
yeah.
more.
So it doesn't connect in the way a lot of auditoriums do, but it's.
Yeah, so
it's-
right there, yeah, right.
Right about the 7.
Right above the 7 is the entrance, that right there, that's where you come in, so you can then go left and go into the gym, or go essentially right or straight and you'll go into the auditorium. And then around the back, there's a hallway that you can access the other rooms back there, the restrooms. That 6 is the kitchen, so it's quite large. And then there's some other like kind of interesting rooms back there that, like an old locker room. 2 and 3 is the stage, and then there's some like dressing rooms behind the stage. And then restrooms. And then we go to the next slide. The second floor is much smaller. It has basically 3 rooms. So you can see in the outline, it's 1, 2, 3 with the storage space and a bathroom number 4. And then there's a picture of each of the rooms there. Pretty big. I'd say the rooms are like pretty similar, maybe a little bit bigger than this room each, about this size. So with the context of that layout, here's kind of where we're at with the inspection and repair process. So we've been inviting some different engineers to just do walkthroughs of the building to give us some free advice on like, what do we need to do next? So we had a mechanical, structural, and electrical engineer come in and offer some advice, and they've given us some feedback and some follow-up. Defining the initial list of repairs, I'm gonna show you that on the next slide. So that's like what we've come up with so far based on those engineers. I have another walkthrough on Friday with some folks that are local, so we're still bringing in a lot of people to get opinions. And a lot of people are really excited about this project and happy to give their professional opinion to help us just get some quotes to get an understanding of like how big are these initial repairs. So the next step will be getting those quotes. Once we have quotes, then we can develop our budget for repair. And once we have a budget, we can seek the funding to pay for it. I think it can be a little bit of chicken and the egg of like, do you seek funding first and have a plan, but you don't know exactly what it's for? Or do you figure out exactly what you need, how much it's gonna cost, what it's gonna be for, and then fundraise for it? And we're going the second route. So here are some things that need to be done. So on a structural level, the good news is it's a solid building. It's basically all concrete, it's bomb-proof, so we have really good structure. That's what the structural engineer told us. We may have some updates to do on ADA compliance that have changed since the building was built. There's a tunnel that connects the building to the mining museum underneath the alley. And that is currently like dripping water down into the tunnel. So that's gonna need to just get filled in and be removed and closed. So that's one project for sure. And then there's some roof repair to do. If you saw in that picture of the auditorium, we could go back to it, but there was like a trash can with some water leaking into it. So we know that the drainage pipes on that part of the building are not working properly. May have had some damage for winterization since it sat for a year not being used. So there's some roof repair to do. In electrical, currently the electrical is being run through the mining museum. It doesn't have its own electrical service, so that will have to be established. We're in the process of figuring out what that would cost and what that looks like. But that's the biggest piece with electrical is that it needs to basically a new service has to be established, since we don't want it to be attached to the mining museum. On the mechanical front, the biggest piece is the heating and cooling, or not cooling, probably not gonna put AC, but heating and ventilation system. There's a relatively new, boiler that was put in, but it cracked due to poor weatherization. So there'll be that's what someone's coming in on Friday to help us think about this. If you know Matt Duncan, he'll be meeting me there, to kind of do this sort of is it gonna be cheaper to repair that whole pipe, broken system, or to build a new system? And what will those costs be? So we're a little TBD on that, but that needs to be fixed. And then hazmat, so that's all kinds of chemicals, asbestos, lead paint, a little bit TBD on me here. We had an asbestos report done on a certain part of the building, but it didn't give us a complete look of the whole building, so that will have to be done in order for kids to use it. So we're seeking quotes for testing for that as well. So before I go into next steps, were there any questions about the repairs part of the project?
Do you think it will be ready to open for some use by this fall?
No.
I was just looking at your timeline. It doesn't go beyond August, so.
That's just because there wasn't space for me to it goes this way on my Excel. So yeah, all of the repairs, that continues through the year. The advisory committee continues through the year.
Okay.
I can pull it up if you'd like to see.
No, that's
the rest of
okay.
the
I
year.
understand the explanation. That's fine. I was just curious.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
do you have any sense for when it might be ready to open, or is it just premature because we don't know what building repairs are required yet?
I think it's a little premature. If Lori or Andrew want to chime in on timeline, you have a better answer than me saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is Lauren, Ms. Barrett has done a fantastic job of gathering information. The best news is the building structurally, the structural engineer said, look, you've got a solid building. So what we're looking at are some of the things of, whether it's roof repair, plumbing, those things I think are fixable, but how quickly can we get contractors to come in and do that? The other thing that's good news that I think shortens the time frame also is that we're getting feedback from the community that the way it's structured may be a way that we leave it. So there isn't a lot of redesigning the floor plans of the building. So removing walls, that type of thing. So if we're looking at upstairs, if you just want to take out the carpet and repaint those rooms, that's a lot quicker than redesigning the whole upstairs. So two good pieces of information that shorten the timeline. I've said we're not going to commit to a certain timeline because, it's never good to overpromise and underdeliver. There are still a lot of pieces of information we're going to need to get before we figure out how extensive the repairs would be to open it. But if we get good news and good feedback from the community and we're able to redesign and fix a few things, that would be fantastic, and it could open a lot sooner.
Great, thank you.
I know it didn't quite exactly answer, but I think
No, it's good enough. I don't know as an answer. I appreciate that.
as soon as possible,
Right.
which may be a year or two. I think it's probably closer to 2,
Sure.
but I don't know.
Any other questions? Who's gonna do the grant writing? Will that be you?
It'll be a combination of people, so, for example, the Lake County Community Funds, I'll be working with John to see if they wanna potentially allow some of their grant writers to be put on this project. Carly Saylor, who works at LC Bag, is also interested in doing some grant writing for us. So as part of that advisory group, we're gonna have a couple of smaller task forces. One of them will be funding. So we'll pull together folks whose entire job is to do grant writing and fund request writing, which isn't me. I might be overseeing that and making sure it continues and doing all the sort of follow-ups because they have their own full-time jobs. But we'll be bringing in people in this community who have brought in grants in the past.
I'm wondering if you have looked into the options for like brownfields grants to do the asbestos and lead evaluations, and that might be a very cost-effective.
Yep, yes, in
I'll
fact,
call you.
do you mind, Andrew, do you mind switching us back so we, the folks at home, we're just looking at a big green screen that says next steps. Mind just switching us back to seeing each other?
Oh, yeah. Okay, just stop sharing.
Oh, great. So, yes, Mayor, I did attend the Department of Legislative Affairs pulled a team of folks together to talk about state and federal funding for brownfields. And so the short answer to that is, you know, if there is any remaining asbestos in the building and that needs to be remediated, then we would probably look at state funding rather than federal funding because it's much less complicated to apply for. But definitely, we've done some legwork in that area.
And the Brownfields Partnership workshop I went to indicated that there was also help available just for the evaluation stage even.
Yeah, essentially the folks, I think you and I may have gone to the same one, but at any rate, they've said, look, we want you to obtain this money and essentially we'll handhold you through the process. But their advice was, look, if you can apply for state funding, do that because the EPA funding is much more onerous to apply for. You know, here's the thing is that the carpet and the ceiling tiles, so the auditorium, the reason there are no ceiling tiles is that was the tiles had asbestos in it, the carpet was taken out. You know, oftentimes if you don't touch the asbestos, sometimes you don't have to remediate it. So the question really is there any other asbestos in the building? You know, I don't know. I think the only place that it might still be possible is insulating the pipes, or if there's some tile hidden under carpet. So for example, we just ran into that with the Tabor apartments where there was water damage, they pulled up the carpet and there was old tile under the carpet. So unless it's hiding, we're hopeful that we don't need to apply for a brownfields grant, but we definitely have it on the list if we need to.
Other comments, questions for Lauren?
So apologies if I'm getting ahead of you, but working to address short, medium, and long-term goals. In your community engagement, you listed county folks that you interviewed. I'm wondering what the county feeling or temperature is related to this project and the pool and all of that can of worms, and what kind of response you got from county folks.
I think you all know probably even better than I do. There's been some historical, like, bad feelings between city and county in different ways. And so just taking the time to make those meetings and meet with the individual people and saying like, tell me what I need to know in order for this project to be successful. Tell me what you think that I haven't thought of yet. How does this fit in with your projects? Like asking those questions did like bring the temperature down quite a lot.
How did it fit in with your project?
You mean like their feasibility study specifically, or are you trying?
Yeah, I mean, so the plan for this rec center is really in early stages. I mean, this is going to materialize way before that.
Right.
That's right. But I'm just wondering what the overlap is in some of the initial considerations. Like I assume they're not putting an arcade in their new rec center, right? But there might be some other things that we can optimize rather than duplicate.
Right, yeah. I think that just continuing to have those conversations, since they're so early in the phases, they can be like collecting research about what this project is doing now, so that they don't duplicate. And then also I'm asking the question in advance, what would we do that might duplicate?
Yeah.
And they're telling, like I got that feedback. A lot of what they want to build is not at all replicated in what you just saw in this presentation. But I think that if that becomes a 7-year project, they're gonna end up kind of going back and rethinking what resources there are once this exists, because this will now be one of the things to consider. I think that project is amazing, and it's also very big, and there's no like certainty that it will happen. And so I think just like continuing to make sure that the same people are having that conversation, that maybe ad nauseum, like every month or so, I'm sending out my updates, they're getting them, having those conversations is like all we can really do. And I'm hoping, and it feels like there's like, yeah, let's be flexible, like if something gets put in this building, and then 3 years later, they're talking about putting it in again, that would be maybe like not awesome.
And we said from the beginning that our community wouldn't be harmed by having more opportunities than less opportunities. And, when this first came up, people would talk about, we lost the movie theater, the bowling alley, and, some other spaces. And so I think even if you have multiple spaces that provide the same thing, people will go to them. I joke and I tell about like my dad. My dad used to go to a different place for bingo on Monday night than he went on Thursday night. And we didn't see that as competition. It was just a different group of people to socialize with. And I think I really want to tailor this so we're not duplicative. Obviously, that's not cost effective. But I also think you can have multiple options for getting together and socializing that may be similar, and they still could be very necessary in our community.
I absolutely agree. And I think as long as you don't talk about putting a pool in this thing.
Yeah, so speaking of the pool, which is not the same project, which is good to get out of the way early on in this community conversation. Folks are like, so is this our chance for a pool? And I'm like, I know, I want that too, but no, this is not that.
Well, I do want to say on that is that we bought the building as constructed. As constructed, you've seen the floor layout, there isn't a pool. What we have said is we own the land next to the community center. And, I've said it before, a land lease is certainly possible if someone else has the funding and wants to lease that land to put a pool there. Obviously that's land that's available in a very central space. But this project that we're working on right now does not include a building with a pool in it. It's a conversation that keeps coming up.
Relationships with PD Swim too, so I'm just gonna keep meeting with them.
Lori, do you mean the parking lot adjacent to Ice Palace? We own that.
So if you look on an aerial photo, and I can try and share my screen, if I can find the photo real quick. When we bought 18 lots with the community center. Okay. Yeah, all right. So thank you very much. I am assuming that was Mr. LaChance that did that. Okay, so if you look to the left, that's the parking area. And the building's in the middle, and then we purchased the land that has the trees and the dwelling on it. Dwelling is, to my understanding, is not salvageable, but we also own the land. I think, right, so I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but it looks like it's pretty close to yeah, because we own a little weird chunk on the very southeast corner that's not reflected on that property line. And if the property line is accurate, then we don't own like a foot of the building.
Don't ask that question.
No. We've found that sometimes the online records are just a slight deviation. So we had legal review what we purchased. We're very confident that we own the land and the entire building.
Other comments or questions?
Lauren, what most surprised you in your research? If there's something that stands out.
Well, I did have 2 more slides, and I think that would be the answer to that, which we don't need to put, I can just say, my voice up to you. I guess maybe not surprising, but still like sometimes a little frustrating is when there is like potential duplication or capacity to use resources we already have, or like having had 91 conversations, like people who are maybe just like not ready to see like the ways that we could like have synergy. And so I think that the like, to your question, Tim, too, that like short, medium, long term, I'm trying to like open that conversation with some of the folks that I work with to imagine what it would look like to start now talking about what does it look like to think about staffing and addressing our youth needs now, knowing that we do have building space that could meet some of those, or we do have organizations that could potentially fill that need and get us started on that path. And just that like it surprises me that like that hasn't, like no one's gone for it yet, right? Like this like issue of teenagers not having a place to go. That we have like after the bowling alley closed, we just never replaced that. And we have lots of really cool nonprofits in town, but like still that continues to be a really empty space. And in conversation, everyone's kind of like, the city's gonna do it. And I wanna be like, no, we are gonna do it. And so that's maybe just surprising and continued like collaboration and conversation to get people to see the like, we have to do this as opposed to like, the city's gonna somehow like solve this problem finally.
So I just want to emphasize this, again, I mentioned in my interview, but I don't see it in your presentation, that a workforce training for youth element of this could help staff it. As long as there's like a competent manager or supervisor willing to do that, I mean, that youth here don't only have no place to go, they have no place to work.
Yeah, you'll find that in the
Part of that too, like who wants to stay up late and supervise the youth? A responsible youth.
I did ask Cloud City students if they would work there and they all were like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things we identified early on, and I'm sorry that Councilmember Luna Leal is out ill this evening, but one of the things we met with the school early on and is that it's important to have that invested interest in it from not only the community. And I think Ms. Barrett's point is accurate, is that we are going to do this. We've heard from the successes of like Huck Finn Park and other community projects, community fields, where the community together worked on these things. So who are going to write the grants? So some of the most successful projects that we've had, community members worked together to build it and then had that pride and that invested interest in it. And you know, one of the concerns about facilities is vandalism. And I think it's hugely important to have our youth involved in building this so that there's a respect and understanding of what it takes to put a towel rack in a bathroom or what it takes to repaint something. And so it's their own investment in this. And I think that's really important to the longevity of a true community center.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if I missed anything. Can you really quick, just the last, in case you are like,
Construction task force.
there it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So convening an advisory group that will continue to meet throughout the year, and that will be a group of community members who want to decide together, so we can share the work together. We'll have some separate task forces. I'll be going around and studying some other rec and teen community centers that are nearby, just to get some ideas of what worked, what didn't work. The students at the architecture UTOP students are gonna be sending some mock designs, and then we're gonna start fundraising. That's what's coming.
So exciting.
I think I already, that was. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. We're a little bit behind schedule, but I think that those presentations and discussions were really important to have and give them the time that they needed. Super excited about this, Lauren. Let's move on to department reports. City administrator.
Okay, great. Let me just grab my notes here. So one of the actually following up on a couple of things on the presentations, I wanted to check in with the council and see, as far as presentations, I don't want to spend time that you don't want to spend on things, but we do have the race series scheduled to present you with the permits that we've received and have a presentation and then schedule the vote at a subsequent meeting. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Do you feel like you need to have a presentation and then time to think about the TUPs, or do you think that we should just schedule that all for one meeting?
Would the presentation be different than the one we got tonight?
In some sense, yes. Tonight was focused on the major changes. I think for those folks who haven't been on the council before, if you have basic questions about any of the permits themselves, particular street closures that we've done for every year, those types of things. Tonight's presentation was different in the sense that it was focused primarily on the differences for this year. So if you would like another presentation, just generally on the impacts of the city and the TUPs that are before the city, we can do that, have the presentation, and then have a vote at the subsequent meeting, or we can do it all at the same time.
I think it kind of depends, like if you want to roll the TUPs like into a consent agenda in the future, then I would definitely like individual presentations so we can just hash out or walk through the details with Tamara.
Yep.
But I know in the past when she comes forward with just a specific TUP and we have the discussion at that time, that also seems to work really well.
Mayor, I think that's a great idea. If y'all are in agreement, we can do the presentation. I think it's scheduled for our next council meeting, and then I can put all the TUPs on the consent agenda for the following meeting. And if people are agreeable to doing it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good. That's good feedback. I just want to be efficient. I know these are big events and there's a lot to talk through. And obviously, Tamara and her time, Ms. Jenlick's time she's been generous with it. So, okay. One of the things that we are going to hear tonight from some of the departments is hiring. I won't steal anybody's show, but we have been doing a great job. And I wanted to thank Ms. Vigil and all the departments who've been working together. It has been fantastic. The number of applicants we've had has been phenomenal. And the quality of the applicants have been phenomenal. So really happy about that. And you'll hear about that in Ms. Vigil's department report. A couple other things that came up, just wanted to flag for you all. Cybersecurity. So for the new council members, I wanted to let you all know that our insurance company allows us to have a free subscription to KnowBe4, which is a type of vendor that helps with cybersecurity. And what we've done with KnowBe4 is I work with our contact person to identify weaknesses in our employee training, and then we push out trainings periodically. So you will get, because you all have access to the city's computer systems, you all will be getting required trainings from KnowBe4, so that is not spam. Please go ahead and do those trainings. I can see who's done them and who hasn't, so I would like to have a very high completion rate on those. And also, we do phishing attempts. KnowBe4 will send out what oftentimes would be a phishing attempt, and if you click on it, KnowBe4 says, "Oops, you clicked on this, and this is spam, and here are the reasons why you should have flagged it." So it does help train everyone about emails you shouldn't click on or things you shouldn't do. So that program is fantastic. We've definitely increased our cybersecurity knowledge. I see our numbers going up as far as our vulnerabilities. The second thing I wanted to talk about is we now have a vendor who is going to be monitoring our network. And it's a really cool program. It came out of the cybersecurity analysis that we did about a year ago. Essentially, this vendor works with students who are in training on to be basically cybersecurity analysts. And so they will be monitoring, overseen by trained, cybersecurity experts, but they will be monitoring our network and flagging suspicious activity and notifying IT Dan of anything that they find. So, and that is a free service for us, for the city. So good news on cybersecurity. Couple other things. I was glad that Amy Hall and Aaron Duggan came by. I was going to let you all know that they are the new executive directors of Main Street Program. And we are reaching out to them to find out about the flower program for 2024 and what the expectations are from the city. Mr. Medina and I talked today a little bit about that, and so we'll be coordinating with them for that this summer. Couple other things to flag. We will be needing to revise the memorandum of understanding that we have regarding our parklet across the street. So if you all don't know, the visitor center has moved out of that building, which is owned by the Chamber of Commerce. They are going to be moving to share some office space down in the Climax, now owned by Climax Bank building. So we had a memorandum of understanding of who was going to take over tasks as far as that parklet, and that was in process before I got here. And lessons I've learned is that we need to spell things out a lot more clearly, because we did not have any agreement in place as to who is going to pay the utilities. So that parklet connected into the visitor center utilities, and now that the visitor centers moving out, we need to have an agreement as who's going to pay the utilities for that parklet, and also who's going to take over some of the tasks that Katie Hild was providing on behalf of the visitor center. So to be determined. Lessons learned. A lot of these things I think would have been better to have spelled out in advance, but I appreciate the streets department may be needing to take on a few other tasks at that building. And so I appreciate their cooperation to make that a great place for visitors to stop, even if it's no longer at the visitor center. At least they can stop early in town and go to the bathroom. Let's see. Couple other things. I was talking to our city attorney today about the sales tax committee. So I haven't heard anything from anybody about that, and I would like to get that going to find out what we can or should be doing about a sales tax. And so our city attorney is going to be sending me the election calendar where we would need to be starting to think about those deadlines that are coming up. So I just encourage the sales tax committee folks to get in touch with me so we can get that going. As you have heard the presentation on the community center, while we can pursue grant funding availability for potential brownfields mitigation and construction costs, ongoing operation costs are going to need a steady funding stream. A public transportation is a good example of that. It is not fiscally easy to run a type of operation like that out of your general fund. So looking at a potential sales tax for that would be a good idea as far as ongoing operations.
Can I speak to that real quick?
What's that?
Yeah, I just wanted to assure you, Councilmember Luna Leal and I are reaching out to the assortment of community members that we agreed to, and the things you mentioned are definitely on our plate.
Okay, great. Yeah, just let me know what you need from me, and I just I wanted to be aware of what our deadlines are and what we may need to be getting information together and coordinating with other community groups that are interested in the sales tax as well. So
That would be
great.
helpful. Thanks.
Couple other things that I flagged in a prior meeting. I mentioned fleet management and what I wanted to. Well, one of the things I found when I arrived at the city where a lot of departments just ran independently, sort of amongst themselves without sort of by default, without really a coordinated effort throughout the city. And one of those things is fleet management. So looking at what I mean is our passenger vehicles, not our heavy equipment, but our passenger vehicles. If a department needed a vehicle, they might just say, oh, I need a new vehicle because our vehicle died, I'll go get one. And we didn't coordinate purchasing throughout the city. And so at the beginning of the year, I started looking into a fleet management program and kind of tried to put it on the back burner because we have a lot of projects going on right now, and I bit off more than I can chew. But we can't put it on the back burner. I just want to flag a couple of things that have come up. We have an aging fleet of vehicles. Mr. Cummins has put together a spreadsheet of what we own, and we own a lot of aging vehicles that have exceeded their useful life. When we get further down the road in this project, I can give you more information and data. But I just want to give you a heads up that we're going to be looking at expenditures probably maybe in this fiscal year or the next fiscal year. I just got word from the police department that they had a vehicle towed down to Summit and it needs about $4,000 worth of repairs. So we're going to need to be making some decisions pretty quickly about, do we repair these vehicles or do we cut our losses and go forward and work on acquiring new vehicles? We're looking at Enterprise. The county uses them for their fleet management, and we've met twice with their representative. She's fantastic. And we would be looking at putting together a capital asset management plan for our fleet, similar to what you've seen from our fire chief in the capital asset planning he has for his firefighting equipment. So a sheet looking at, okay, here's the vehicles that need to be replaced now. Here's when the others will cycle out. And what is your annualized cost for that? So it'll be much easier for budgeting. But I wanted to flag that because right now we don't have that money in the budget, but it may not make sense. Right now, the police department does not have enough vehicles. There are too many vehicles that need repairs. So this has become a priority rather than something we can put on the back burner. So just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or ask me anything I might have forgotten.
Questions for Ms. Simonson? Okay, thank you. Moving on to street department.
Bringing all my stuff so I can learn quickly after. This is the time of year we're going through a lot of transitions from snow removal to pothole filling. And I started to plan on doing some paving projects and, you know, there's just a lot going on right now. We do have some good news. We did actually hire a new operator. He started on Monday. So yes, it's gonna help out very much. In fact, he helped me out quite a bit today. We had an opportunity to pick up a bunch of culvert material so we can replace some of our culverts that we've been looking at. 30-inch, 20-foot ADS pipe. And the grand total for picking this stuff up was just our time and gas mileage to go down and pick it. So we have actually picked up close to, well, today alone, we picked up about $12,000 worth of material that they're just giving the city level.
Wow.
Tomorrow, we're gonna go down and pick up even more, so it'll be about another 12 to 15,000 that they're just donating to us. Half of it is new, never been in the ground, and the other half has only been in the ground for about 3 months, but they were very careful taking it out. They've given us a bunch of connections, bells, everything like this, and we're gonna need short pieces so we can fit together what we need to repair some of our drainage system down at the west side of town. Which is gonna help quite a bit, because I've actually got about 2 streets down there that I gotta do at least I believe 3 driveways that have no culvert system at all. Everything just flows into the road, so we're gonna change that, so we can avoid the flooding down on the bottom part of that town, that section of town right there. We have picked up all the asphalt that we could last week, but recent weather has not cooperated, so we only got to use about a quarter of that. Can I take this? Can I call you right back? Yeah. Okay, thanks. One of my guys, he's a Caribbean firefighting. I don't usually hear from him, so it's kind of unusual. We're just transitioning into the summertime, the springtime. All the water seems to be flowing pretty good right now. We do have an opportunity, well, you have something presented to you tonight about our vacuum trailer. And I don't know if anybody has actually even seen what this looks like. But I can give you a picture of it. The paperwork itself is floated around among everybody here. And what it does is it's a 250-gallon tank, water tank. It's got a hot seat on it, so it actually has hot water. So it's gonna be very beneficial for us during the winter time if we have to unfreeze culverts and stuff. And it's got a vacuum on it, so we can use. I think you guys can see that. And it's 250-gallon to put the water in, 250 to suck the water out back again too. It's got a huge tank, so we will be able to get all of the material that we pull out of our drainage systems, because we'll be able to do. It's gonna help out on by the laundromat on 24 West on that situation out there. Since we maintain those things for the state, it's gonna also help with every one of our drainage here on Harrison Avenue. And we'll be able to clear out so much other issues with culverts and stuff that we'd have to flush out before with a tanker truck. Flushing 4,000 gallons of water through the culvert does not work very good. So this will help out quite a bit with that. We'll be able to help out Parkville. It will be available for just about anything that we need to here in town. Nice thing about it too is it's also gonna be able to dig an 8-inch pothole for us to be able to do our signs now. So we'll be able to do that instead of having to hammer everything in or use an auger to drill everything out. Will make things life a lot easier for us. And for the city, it'll be able to do quite a few things for us. Those are some of the highlights that I've got going on right now. Been a long day, already going on 14 hours, so if you have any questions, please.
Questions for Mr. Medina?
Two quick questions. Where did the culvert material you got come from?
Colorado Springs.
From the municipality?
Huh?
From the municipality?
No, it was a contracting company that was doing work.
Nice. And are there any paving projects planned?
Oh, yes,
This summer, can you give us a quick highlight?
this is still the plan from last year, but, we can sit down with Lori and go over a few more things and try and review with our budget what we have. Last year, we were looking at, for this year, to try and do the section down by the high school. It's an extension off of 3rd Street, down through there, that's a school bus route, and that road is pretty gator backed, it's pretty rough. And, you know, it's gonna be a safety issue with them. Definitely wanna redo the half block at 6th and Harrison, East 6th and Harrison. Those potholes were just humongous this year, and they seem to be getting bigger every year. I've had, Parkville stop by, and we're trying to figure out whether there's an underlying issue with the water coming underneath there. And they told me that there's a main line that goes right down the middle of 6th Street, all the way to the top of 6th Street. So they opened the manhole and they checked it. They said everything looks fine in there. It's a 100-year-old valve right in there, but there was no water. Everything was dry in there. But they're pretty confident that's not the problem. But we do have a lot of water coming from the alley there. There's a issue with the drainage from the building right there in the corner that we're gonna have to address. A request has been made whether we can put in some type of drainage when we do the paving, if we can dig and put drainage in there to connect them up to the drainage right there at the corner of 6th and Harrison. We'll have to look at that and see what kind of funds we're gonna need to do that, how feasible it really is to do something like that.
And that would only be the half block.
Yeah.
6.
Yeah. Not all the way up. We'll go as far as, I wanna say the first crack, but we might end up having to go to the second. It depends on how bad that really is. We've got some tentative time set up with, Martin, who's the paving company that is here last year. He's done all of our paving for the last several years. And he will be able to tell me when he can start, what it's gonna basically cost, be able to give us a kind of a ballpark figure on what we're gonna need for that. A lot of that work, we're gonna be able to do ourselves. As far as the groundwork, we'll be able to pull the pavement, level the roads. We've got the equipment and I've got the guys with the know-how how to do it and get it ready for them. So that'll save us, at least it'll save us their fees. It'll be just mostly paving, getting ready. Thank you. But that's where I have those guys. They know what they're doing. But good up here is up here. If anybody wants to take a look at it. All the stuff in black is what we want to get done. We did get a few things done on the list here. I haven't had time to update this yet, but it's still up here, and the next couple of weeks, I'll definitely be updating this, so you'll be able to take a look at what's here.
And then have you been in touch with Parkville about any potential joint projects? Where in the past we've shared some paving costs with them?
Yeah, that's still a thing that we can do with them. They don't have any problem with that. I did talk to them about the top of Sixth Street, because last year they did one section and they were planning on doing a couple more where it's sunken in. The last they told me is they're seeking grants for that too, because that's gonna be a little bit more expensive than what they thought, because they're gonna have to do more work than they expected.
I think somebody estimated $2 million for them, for that upper
So,
Sixth.
if they wanna do the whole thing, yeah, but if they do it in sections, I'm not sure exactly what their plans are. I have to get with sanitation next to find out what their plans are. Cause I don't wanna pave something and have them come in and cut it up.
Yep.
Parkville has a tendency to do that. I tease them all the time, what, you wait 2 weeks and then you cut it for them and stuff, so. But sanitation, they've got a project that they wanna work on over here on, I believe it was somewhere on 8th Street.
Okay.
I have to get that firmed up. And then Parkville has something up on the top of Capitol Hill going down 10th Street that they want to cut up. Cause I wanted to do Capitol Hill. But if they're gonna cut and do pipe work, they're gonna have to do on that. For right now, anyway.
Do you mean the section going down towards Size Palace Park?
They weren't real definite on what direction they were going. They've already cut a section up there on, off of Harrison, going on 10th Street, going west. I don't know if he meant they're going further west, or they gotta come back down and go down Capitol Hill. So I just gotta get with them and get a little bit more definite answers from them. But everybody's doing something different all the time, so.
It's always something. Other questions for Mr. Medina?
It's one quick one. There's been a broken shade post on 500 block.
I'm trying to find where we bought those things, so I can get another one. I wanted to get it welded, but it's aluminum, and that takes a specialty to get that thing fixed. Right now, it's just kind of balancing there and keeping an eye on it, but as soon as I find a new post for it, definitely get it changed. Okay. So, no, I'm aware, thank you.
I just had a quick question about the new piece of equipment, which I think is great, and I know that you said it could also be helpful to Parkville. Are there also situations where we would share that with the county?
If they were to request, yeah, they can probably do that. But I just found out too, though. He's not even a salesman, he's just the guy that got us started on this. He told me that Parkville was looking at purchasing one too. So I'm gonna try and get it done tomorrow and find out, because he said the model that they want isn't even up to part of their rentals. He wants me to talk to them.
Yeah, just wonder if we could share equipment, we can, it's a small enough community. Okay, right.
Any other questions? Get thee to bed, sir. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna go home and get some food.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Call your guy.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay, police department.
Hey. So right now we are one psych test and medical clearance away from hiring our next full-time officer. I should have that information in the next couple days. We also have a former officer who wants to come back part-time, and they're just waiting on medical clearance from their doctor for a previous shoulder injury. So that is most of it. unless you have any questions.
Questions for Chief Breyer?
I have a question about parking tickets. I know we've been over this before, but the numbers still seem incredibly low to me, considering how many people I see illegally parked all the time.
I
And
would agree.
Go ahead, sorry.
I would agree with you. We've been discussing this. This is a primary duty of the community service officers. And we are planning on having an in-house sit down to see how we can rectify this situation. The CSOs need to start producing more. That's just quite simply their job. And I'm unhappy with the low levels of enforcement. It's just unacceptable.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Other questions for Chief Breyer?
I was just gonna mention on the hiring front that we also have several other applicants who would need to be put through the police officer academy. And so Acting Chief Breyer has put in for us to have 2 folks sent to post by grant. So the city has applied for grant money for that. And so we are going to be, Ms. Vigil is going to be working to see if those applicants would be a good fit for our department. So we, in addition to the 1 officer who is post certified, hopefully coming on, crossing our fingers, we have other applicants who would need to go to post. And then I think one other, in addition to the person who's looking to come back, another person who might be interested, who is a friend of the officer we're hoping goes successfully through the medical and psych exam. So there are some good prospects out there right now. So I think we've had a lot of meetings, Acting Chief Breyer and I, Ms. Vigil, we're more optimistic than we've ever been with the level of interest we're getting of people who specifically want to work for the Leadville Police Department.
At this time, I'm hoping to be able to have the LPD set up to transition to a new chief so that they're not starting out in a hole. And that's really my focus right now. And if we can just get a couple more people on duty, and it looks very good, that it looks like the chances are very good that's going to happen, I think it will be a good thing for the next chief.
Thank you so much. I share your optimism. Any final questions for Chief Breyer?
I
Okay.
have a question on page 44. There's a chart of patrol times. What do those numbers represent?
I'm going to have to bring those up.
It's
54 of our packet.
There's just so many colors. It's hard to know y-axis.
Oh, and while Acting Chief Breyer is bringing that up, I did want to relay, I did pass on the information about the chart being a little hard to read in our department report. And so I'm hoping that we're making improvements on that aspect, but if it's still hard to read, please let me know. I passed that information along to Ms. Flores, so she doesn't actually do the charts herself, but Perla Flores, who supervises the admin staff. So any feedback on that? Is it better? It still needs work?
Labeled y-axis would be helpful.
Okay.
Index.
And then, yeah.
Yes, in this one for sure.
Okay.
So those are hours. Yeah, we should, I'm just gonna read this.
I don't. Oh, the next one has a y-axis. Okay, last questions. We'll look into that and see about improving that that data presentation. Last questions for Chief Breyer. Okay, I know I often call for a break.
Sorry, I do have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
How will the hiring of one new officer impact our need for coverage from the sheriff. If you
Uh,
could speak to that.
Quite often, we're looking at needing coverage from the SO. We're cutting down the amount that we've been asking. One officer is 16 plus shifts a month. A part-time officer is another 8. If we hire a full-time and a part-time officer, that should come pretty close to eliminating our need for routine requests for coverage from the SO. Add a working chief into the mix, and it's pretty much a done deal. A part-time officer, a working chief, and a full-time officer, and we will be fully staffed without as much buffer as we need. We'll still need to add more officers, but we'll be in a much better position.
Thank you.
And just so you
Okay,
know,
wow.
as far as the stress on the request from the sheriff's office, so we've had a number of internal meetings, but Acting Chief Breyer and I and Ms. Vigil and Sergeant Ortega have had a number of meetings about working on ways that we can cover more of our shifts. So if we do have 2 officers out who are covering the nighttime shift, Sergeant Ortega has volunteered to go to night, so that instead of having to ask the sheriff's office for coverage on that we would have him switch to night. So I just really wanted to applaud Sergeant Ortega for stepping up and being willing to switch back and forth from days to nights. And we're looking at some other ways of making sure that we have coverage, even if we have an officer who is either on vacation or military leave.
Thank you. Okay, seriously, last call for questions for Chief Breyer. Since we're a little behind, Steve, I'm gonna take your question and pass it on from public comment, please. I know I often call for a break right around 8 p.m. We are behind, and I want to honor the time of the staff and department heads who are here to give us our reports. So I would like to plow ahead until we get to finish with department reports, and then I promise a break. You guys okay with that?
Yes.
All right, fire department.
Hello. I am the operations chief, and I'm stepping in today for Chief Daly. He's at a conference for professional development. He gave me a list of things to talk about. And so our Type 6 engine, which is a brush truck, it's basically like a large pickup truck for wildland fire. That has arrived, and we are doing kind of last minute improvements or additions to it. And that should be in service by the end of this month, which is pretty exciting. Right now, we are assisting Eagle County with a prescribed burn, and we have our new Type 3 engine over there. We're getting paid the surf rate for that, which is about $167 an hour. So we're making a little bit of money to help pay for this new equipment. We are going to be having town hall meetings in June, on June 20th and 27th, one at the Freight Building and one at our new Station 2. And these are meetings where we're going to bring citizens in and explain the importance of mitigation and how we can do that type of work and how we can help them. We'll also be pushing that information out on social media so that people know about it. Our new Type 1 engine that we weren't really expecting to get put into service quite yet. We had a problem with the suspension of our Pierce, the one that we've had for the last 6 or 7 years. So we've actually had to put the Type 1 Spartan in service. So we have a new engine, a different engine that we're running on right now. Our ladder truck which is, it's the truck with the big giant ladder that helps us reach the top of big buildings. Is, we've been having a lot of problems with that for a few years, and it's kind of really gotten to the point right now where it's not working at all. But we have, Chief Daly has talked to the management board about this, and he's talked to the city of Golden. The city of Golden has a fairly nice truck that they're getting rid of, and we might be able to get a hold of that at a huge savings. On June 22nd, we're going to have a ceremony and a swearing in at Station 2. The entire community and especially city council members are invited, and we're hoping to have a real fun community day. And the last thing on the list that he wanted me to inform you guys about, the Headwater Training Center, our training center out on County Road 11. There's a huge stack of containers out there, and we are in the process of looking at how we can reconfigure those containers to make special, bless you, to make special props, training props. And that will be a process that goes on for a while. It'll be a permitted process. So as we get farther into that, we'll have to come back and kind of let you guys know what we're doing and get your permission before we can apply for the permits and get the permits to actually do that. We are working with Colorado Mountain College on that project, and they hopefully are going to be able to help us with the financing of moving the containers around and building different props. And we're also going to try to work on a climate controlled building out there, which will involve getting utilities to it, which we don't have right now. That will allow us to store things out there that, but right now, everything that we have out there, it's in the wintertime, it just freezes. And that'll give us a chance to store stuff out there that needs to be stored and not frozen, and also train out there. Real quick, that's what I have. Are there any questions?
Questions for Operation Chief again? All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Super good news. All right. Human Resources, Ms. Vihel.
Good evening, everybody. There's kind of a theme here, but the last month or so, most of my time has been spent on recruiting. I recently kind of passed my 90 days at the city, and the biggest need that has been expressed, both just by me observing and being told so, was that everyone is spread very thin and short on capacity. So I put a lot of effort into recruiting with a little bit of luck, and we've had some great candidates and have been filling positions left and right. So I'm extremely thrilled about that. As Tony mentioned, we had a streets equipment operator start yesterday on Monday who already has a CDL. So that was great. We'll be extending a couple of offers this week for the administrative assistant position and planner 1. So I'd really like to congratulate again Lori Tai, who transferred to the fire department and their growing administrative needs. And then Andrew, Mr. Cummins, has taken on the role now of permit technician, previously occupied by Lori Tai. So we have great internal development and growth going on. So Andrew's former position, administrative assistant, we had a lot of great applicants apply. So we'll be hopefully having that offer accepted this week and starting in a couple weeks to keep things moving on. Police officer, as Chief Breyer mentioned, in the very final stages of trying to get him on board. I actually did officially receive the application for his friend/colleague who is also post-certified. So he sent me an application today. So we're gonna try to hit the ground running and get the process started with him. Of course, with law enforcement and such, it's a much more extensive process. They do ride-alongs and evaluations and physicals and stuff. So it's not as quick, but getting candidates in the pipeline has definitely been the #1 success. And so we're going to just keep up the momentum while we can. But with that, that is really, like I said, been the majority of my time the last month. The other big one, I hope you all received my email yesterday. KRW Associates will be visiting Leadville next Wednesday. So they will come up in person. We will host 3 different focus groups at 9, 10, and 11 a.m. These focus groups are going to be interviews conducted by KRW Associates. And the main goal of this first step is for them to get an ideal candidate profile. So to hear from our council members, our current police department, other major stakeholders that work closely with our police department. They want to know exactly what type of candidate we are looking for, experience, qualifications, working chief, all those things. So that will be the goal for the interviews on April 24th. So that's kind of the quick rundown. I know it's kind of short, but it has taken a lot of time to give to build up to this really quick report. So I will open up to any questions.
That was a quick report, but it was jam-packed. Questions for Ms. Vito?
Paige, we still have an opening for a streets operator, is that right? I know you filled one, but do we still have an opening?
We do not in the budget currently. There has been discussion on do we overhire? And so I still have the position open online. So if we get, very qualified candidate, I wouldn't pass them up because come the winter months, as we've discussed a lot recently, that's when we get in a jam. So going to be diligent about just budget constraints, but also if we have a very qualified, high quality candidate who has CDL and experience, that would definitely not be something I would easily pass up either.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice job, thanks.
All right, I understand that that Caitlin is out on leave, so Ms. Simons, are you aware of any updated animal shelter report? Or can we just pass that?
Nope, I do not have any updates. Yeah, Ms. Casco is out on personal leave, so we're happy to pass along any questions that you may have. We just want to thank Ms. Caraveo for stepping in and running the animal shelter and doing everything in Ms. Casco's absence.
Great. Nice to have that continuity. All right, let's move on to Deputy City Clerk licenses.
Oh, you know what? I do have one thing I did want to mention on the animal shelters. So we do have Ms. Caraveo in training to do animal control officer duties. And so she is, I think, attending one of her modules this Thursday. And so I've asked her just to keep us apprised. We are trying to get her training in around operational needs. But she's very, very interested in being an animal control officer, and we're very interested in getting her that training. And just so you all know, we're pursuing that as much as we can, given operational needs.
Great, thank you. Okay. Licenses report.
I will be giving this report for Ms. Shear, who unfortunately was also feeling ill, so she was not able to attend. As for business licenses, there is no current updates since the last meeting. For liquor licenses, there is a new restaurant that is applying for a liquor license currently and will be coming before city council to review in an upcoming meeting. And then also, I'd just like to remind any vendors that they can call 303-205-2300 to verify any applicant that is in the process of getting a liquor license if they are unsure whether or not they are able to sell to that applicant. For marijuana, there is no updates at this time. Short-term rental, the renewal period began on March 15th of this year for those who already hold a short-term rental license. A renewal letter was sent out on March 15th to current license holders. Over half of the license holders have applied for renewal at this point. Renewals for current license holders are active until actually yesterday, April 15th, at which time the remaining license will be open to the people on the wait list. If anyone who already holds a permit renews after May 1st, there may not be any licenses available. That is the
Be
end of
informed. Thank you. Question, any questions you want to pass on to Ms. Sheriff regarding licenses? Okay.
Oh, I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
mention one quick thing on the short-term rentals. So I spoke to Ms. Shear today and she said, I think there were a handful that haven't renewed. And so we will probably just reach out to them. It creates less work for us to reach out to folks and remind them than have them be fussed afterwards, especially since we will potentially be reducing the number. We don't want there to be a lot of friction there. So I think we were at, Mr. Cummins, did she let you know how many? I think there's somewhere between 118 and.
She said 118, yeah.
118 as of this evening.
Yep. So that there are, because we did have a wait list, so that means there are, 50 some that haven't renewed. So we will work with them to give them one last chance because it creates less work for us than having them not find that they didn't receive a letter or they, somehow didn't get the communication. So.
And that will be really meaningful because tonight we're going to consider the new cap for a second reading on the ordinance.
Is 118 the total number of renewals, or is that just 118 of the renewals that count towards towards the cap?
Those are paid. I did go in and check and those are actually paid.
I mean, like we're class 1 versus class 2.
Yeah.
I believe these are the ones that would count towards that limit. So 118 of the potential cap.
That was
Which
my
is
understanding.
class 2?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Okay. Let's move on to the combination building department, planning department.
Okay. If you have any questions on the building department report, I can try and answer those, but we can expect the permit volume to increase as we enter into the summer construction season. All right, for planning, in terms of projects that have not yet submitted that I'm expecting, 2 historic district projects, certificates of appropriateness. One, we've been in conversations with the owner of the Manhattan Bar building on a multi-phase project for both interior and exterior restoration, rehabilitation that would be on the upstairs part of the building, apartments and portions of the exterior. And then also we had a pre-application meeting last week with property owners and design team for 225 Harrison Avenue. So that's the building Leadville Outdoors and Desert Mountain Medicine is in. And that project would involve some work in the right of way for the rehabilitation of the building, kind of starting with the basement and working its way up and result in basically getting that a lot of stability brought to that building. And I had a pre-application meeting with Kelowna Architects, that is the design group for the rail yard project. And this is regarding a mixed-use building that would be on the corner of the highway and 15th Street. With ground floor, commercial and residential on the upstairs, which is allowed as a by right use for the PUD. In terms of active applications, things that are now heading to public hearings, we have an ADU in the historic district that has been proposed, and that will come in a future HPC and city council meeting. We also have the Schreier's Market rehabilitation, so that's 200 East 6th Street, the old Lucky Corner property. And that will be going to HPC next week, and then the city council meeting, first meeting in May. Processed applications, things that have been gone through the planning department and have been signed off. The main update that I have on this is the 28 unit condominium building in the rail yard. This is 309 Grand Review. This is complicated. Essentially, planning was in a position where we could not withhold a signature on the building permit application approval form. This was a project that was originally submitted for its building permit application in 2022. This was so prior to my start here. And for the city attorney, at the time, this was, I think, about 2 weeks ago, the city, where we were with enforcement of the rail yard, we were not in a position where we could withhold a building permit sign off if they had met all of our comments for PUD compliance. So I don't believe that building permit has been issued, but planning has signed off because we could not withhold that signature. I think the remaining sign offs include the sanitation district.
Okay.
Yes.
What are the variances involved in that, just out of curiosity? This says variances planning approved.
I think that's a typo. Yeah, good catch, and there's no variances with that. Yeah. I think that was just left over from my previous last month's update. Okay, just continuing on with rail yards and construction. So most of you have been involved in the updates on stormwater issues. The latest is that we have, we're really in the point where we're trying to receive documentation to understand whether the storm sewer system has been constructed correctly or not as we head into spring runoff, snow melt, et cetera. And it's not that it's just documentation. So documentation is needed to understand if certain things were constructed correctly, then those things would have to be corrected. But right now we're in a place where our engineer is reviewing all the documents that have been submitted. But the developer is past their deadline, which was Friday, to submit the latest round of requested documents that our engineers requested to confirm that accurate construction has occurred. So we're remaining in enforcement mode. And technically, as of today, we can be in a place where we can issue a notice of breach. I'm waiting for our engineer to review the latest documents that were submitted last week, so I can send out a letter communicating what remains to be submitted. But it's just painstaking enforcement, and we're multiple levels, layers down into this enforcement. The notice of breach that would be issued by the city attorney would open up all the enforcement provisions of the SAA, which could include withholding building permits, certificates of occupancy, stop work order, et cetera. So stay tuned. I'll continue to keep council updated every month. In regards to code amendments, as time allows, I've been trying to do as much work as I can on two particular ordinances. Of course, we'll talk about short-term rentals here in a bit. But we've had work sessions with the Planning and Zoning Commission on the housing variety code amendments. So that those are essentially the current package that has the incentive zoning for ADUs, duplexes, and 3 or more dwelling units. And then, so additional density in exchange for workforce housing the project. And then also development agreements. Last week we had a work session with P&Z and there were some mixed comments, to be frank. And so I'm in the process of evaluating all those comments. We'll have an additional work session next week that will involve a discussion, I think, of both of these ordinances, both of these code amendments. What for the development agreements ordinance, what the remaining steps for that Of course, I want to be on the same page with P and Z as I approach city council and go through the public hearing process. But it's a text amendment to the zoning code, which requires a public hearing first at planning and zoning commission before we go to first reading and second reading in city council. So those, I have one more work session and then hopefully can enter a public hearing process for development agreements. And then last week at P and Z, we also reviewed a referral from Lake County government for multiple applications regarding the Silver King property in Lake County that abuts city of Leadville limits, which is what is known as rail yard phase 3. So that is a proposed rezoning of the property to have a custom PUD that was a planned unit development, custom zoning for the property, and change of use of the property to multifamily use for affordable housing. The comments that both staff and P and Z provided to the county, actually we had the design team and the representatives from this application come and present to P and Z and answer questions. The comments were back to the county regarding this application, included in the comment letter that I drafted the next day regarding circulation, specifying the actual use of the property that is intended to be used for affordable housing and further defining that and the occupancy restrictions. Density, because with the change of use, this would actually be a residential project that would have a pretty high density. And then finally, compatibility with what we are expecting to be rail yard phase 3, which will most likely be an exclusively residential development, considering it doesn't have highway frontage there. So those were our comments that I can, if anyone wants a copy of that comment letter, I'm happy to provide that.
I would love to see that.
Okay, good deal. And that is being fast tracked by the county, considering the multifamily affordable housing, community housing component of that development.
Chapin?
Yes.
So this is the affordable housing definition of 120% of AMI.
No, this PUD right now is proposed, so it's custom zoning, that would be essentially be an overlay on top of the property. And the table that has been proposed, which would be the zoning allowed uses for the property going forward, specifies multifamily use. And this is a big application. I didn't have a chance to review every single word, but as far as I can tell, there's not a definition for multifamily use spelled out and in the PUD document. And so although the narrative for the application describes the intent for affordable housing, employee housing, community housing, et cetera. And I think that those terms need to be narrowed down in their narrative, so we're clear on what they're proposing. Within the PUD itself, it lacks a definition for multifamily use and certainly defining anything beyond multifamily use, for example, employee housing. So that was a comment definitely driven by staff, supported by the P and Z. That if that's truly the intent of the conversion, then that should be further defined.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So is that the Fading West owned property?
No, that is this proposal, the Silver King, is for the Silver King Motel. Within the county fronting the highway, which butts city Leadville limits on its eastern boundary and actually on its southern boundary, and that is the phase 3 of the rail yard, which is owned by Fading West.
Okay, so it abuts Fading West on property.
Yes.
Which is currently the city limit because it was annexed in, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Chip, I'd be interested in seeing your comment letter as well.
Okay, we'll share that with city council.
So as it turns from a hotel into residential, that's what requires the rezoning?
It currently would not comply with the residential use would not be allowed on that property, and also the density that's proposed, because it's not a lodging property, it would then be residential property with units, and which would be above the units per acre allowance. And I'm not the administrator of Lake County zoning code, so this is just my interpretation on what's communicated in the application, but those are the two reasons why the PUD is being proposed, so it can have its own custom zoning, so it can comply with zoning, because the proposal would not comply with the current.
Okay. And so county asked you, city planning department, for comments, just to get your thoughts on it, or is there any sort of jurisdictional oversight?
There's not any jurisdiction. It is, it's common courtesy nationwide for anytime there's a proposal, in one jurisdiction that's adjacent to another jurisdiction or even nearby and will potentially cause impacts. That as part of the application process, when the application is being referred out to for required referrals for like utility providers, for example, to demonstrate that the project can have utility service. But then at that time, it's also referred to the municipality that is adjacent.
Okay.
For comments, and so that was the nature in which that came to us, but we do not have any jurisdiction.
So how appropriate would it be for us to ask for clarity on some of these issues, like what they mean by affordable?
I think that that is in the letter, and so at this point, it came from Planning and Zoning Commission and city. I think they requested those comments last week, and I think Joey might know the answer to this, but there's a hearing coming up pretty soon on that. Joey's a member of the county.
Next Monday.
So I can send that, and the county, city council could attend that meeting and provide comments. Development subcommittee, I'm still on the development subcommittee of the Regional Housing Authority, and there's been a lot of meetings for site planning for the two properties, the infill properties, the school district property and the hospital property. As we approach the RFP, and we drafted the RFP this week, and the RFP will be, I think, posted on Friday for the developer for development of that site for 20 units. That concludes my updates. I'm happy to take any questions for the planning department.
Other questions for Mr. Lachance? As always, it's so much, like I feel like you need your own meeting sometimes. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to financial, sales tax and bills.
Good evening. So we are continuing to do our ongoing training of, electronic timekeeping. We'll be rolling out the PD within the next couple weeks. And then lastly, fire, if we can get them, to pull in correctly. There's so many nuances that we're not sure how that's gonna work. Exciting news, we will also be moving to electronic pay stubs. So we'll probably have a push, to make sure that I have everybody's current, email addresses. This includes council. And then we have opportunities for various ways to receive them. You can receive a text that says it's ready with a link. So we're, I also have a meeting next week for to go over the ClearGov, which is the contract we signed for the budgeting. So I'll be trying to work on that as we prepare for the 2025 budget season. Colorado Trust Investment, I'm shocked every time I get in there. It's kind of fun. I did check that balance this evening, and as of close of business today, we have earned just over $14,000. I think we invested like the last few days in February, so it's kind of fun and exciting to watch our money grow. Nothing big on finances. We're running about 25% of budget overall for the general fund, as well as the fire admin fund, which we're right on target. We've gone through 25% of the year, and we seem to be tracking where we should be. Sales tax, as reported by the county government, was $281,708 for March. We will actually see that in May. Let's see, accommodations tax, Q1 24 is due by April 20th. I have been going in there and just kind of poking around and seeing lots of the renewals come through, as well as their quarterly payments. So I don't have any estimates right now. I haven't downloaded anything to really give you a stance where we're at. I'll wait till towards the end of the month, so everybody has a chance to pay in their quarterly due, or not dues, taxes. Sorry about that. Continue to work on catching up bank recons, investigating short-term rentals, what we can do
whether it's for tracking or what that might look like. So investigating ways that we can make sure that we're getting accurate reporting and the money that is due from those people. Let's see, no other big highlights there as far as the reporting goes. Do you have any specific questions on the financials or the sales tax? I did include a chart at Councilmember Tharp's request on the short-term rental tracking. I don't know if it's helpful, it's just information.
Awesome, thank you.
So, you know, we can use that information as
Yeah.
we need to, and if there's something else you'd like to see, I can investigate how to push that out.
We're not to the bills yet.
Oh.
Just hang on. Any questions regarding financials?
Crystal, thanks for the accommodations tax chart. It makes it way easier for me to read anyway, for sure, and compare. Anything that's blank, can we assume those are zeros?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's just that they, we didn't have any payments received during that.
Due in those months, right?
Exactly. So typically it's going to be, we should see those quarterly payments. But you see they kind of trickle in all over the place. So if it's zero, we actually have people that had already paid or, you know, it wasn't due yet. So, typically we should see the bulk of the payments come in April, July, October, and then, December or January. They come in January, but we're reporting them in December. For financial purposes, but at the end of those quarters is when we should see those.
Thanks.
Okay.
I have something just out of curiosity, because it just appears very odd to me. In the fire department fund, holiday pay is already at 60% of year to date. While everything else seems well within 25, I'm just curious how that could happen.
I'm wondering, because we added, when we shifted our city holidays, we had to update the union contract to include holidays that were not previously, so like that was right on the cusp of, say, Chavez. So I'm wondering, I need to probably delve into that a little deeper, but I'm wondering if that's part of it, is. It would only be one extra holiday, and I need to investigate that as well to see if that's encompassing, that should only be holiday worked. I believe that's the way it's laid out with the fire department. But I can investigate that and see, you know, what we're looking at.
And then, one more question, Crystal. So I think last I recall, you and or Lori were trying to set up a meeting with Muni Revs to see if there were tools in that database to look back on the SCR taxes. Have you found out more about that yet? Or-
They are very hard to get a hold of.
Okay.
Even I have some support tickets out there for some other questions on owner accounts that I don't know how to help them. And they are extremely slow to respond. Mr. Cummins has also reached out to them with telephone calls and emails. So they are extremely slow to respond, but we are trying.
Okay, but we still don't know if they have any tools that could help us. with that.
No, I tried to poke around a little bit today to see if I could like find something that might be useful, but I couldn't find anything as far as, you know, if they had something within the system that would show us occupancy or, you know, to try to mesh things together. So I think we really have to speak with a rep to see, you know, what their product can do for us, if it can do more, and what that training might look like for those of us that need to be able to access it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, darn.
Other questions regarding finances or sales tax? Thank you. Let's satisfy Councilmember Best's request and look at these bills. I don't want to look at them too much, though. There are some very large numbers in here, even though I know where they, like, the sawtooth.
I have a general question about the bills.
Yeah, of course.
It just jumps out to me how much we pay retail locally for things like light bulbs, windshield wipers, ice melt, and is there like, can we seek some of that wholesale and just not spend retail prices on things that we know we're gonna need? I mean, how much money we spend at O'Reilly and Bighorn?
Yeah, and that's, there's always that back and forth between spending your money, sorry, locally versus, we can see ordering in bulk some of those things, and that's actually a good point. But I also definitely like to support our local businesses. So sometimes, could we order some office supplies and some things, on Amazon, or could we order some of this on Amazon more cheaply? Maybe, but I also like to support our local businesses. So we can definitely look into ordering more of this in bulk, though.
I certainly wouldn't suggest Amazon as an alternative, but maybe a supplier,
Yeah.
Which I think we do utilize Will, for
Yeah,
some
I
of
see that.
those, for paper, and I'm not sure if it's wholesale or retail. I think we do get fairly deep discounts. A lot of the, Bighorn, O'Reilly, those are, I need this right now to do, my job or to have this function, I think.
I understand, yeah.
Sorry,
questions on
I do think it is always, we're always looking for ways we can, be wiser with city money. So that's something we'll look into.
Other questions or comments on the bills? And I would gladly entertain a
Let's
motion.
move to the bills.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, let's take a 5-minute break, please. You're welcome. Thank you for your patience with that. Okay, we have 3 more things, and I think these will be straightforward, but this first one is a little curious, because we don't encounter closing a certificate of appropriateness or after a withdrawal, so I'm gonna have Chapin just sort of introduce this to us, please.
Sure, so for the record, I'm Chapin, Planning Director for the City of Leadville. So I just want to keep this really simple and straightforward. So at the last time that the city council had the application, the COA application for 109 Oak in front of them, and it was a public hearing that had been publicly noticed. And the city council continued the application to a date certain, which is this date of tonight. So the public has been noticed that the hearing was continuing to tonight. Since the last time city council had this in front of you, the application was withdrawn. There was not a written statement, but the applicants did come in my office and inquired about subdividing the property to sell off the portion of the property that did not include the historic structure. And so they could retain the portion of the property that did not include the historic structure and sell off the portion of the property that did include the historic structure. But no other explanation for withdrawing the application. So that application has been withdrawn, but we need to formally close the public hearing tonight. It's just a matter of formality.
Okay,
A suggested motion is in your packet on page 109.
questions or discussion? Then I would entertain a motion.
Considering the applicant has withdrawn their application, I move the city council close the public hearing for the certificate of appropriateness application for the demolition of a historic structure, PL-2024-006, located at 109 Oak Street.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tharp.
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
Mayor Green.
Yes.
And Councilmember Thomas.
Yes. Thank you. All were in favor. Moving right along to resolution number 24, series of 2024. This is a resolution regarding the purchase of that back truck that Mr. Medina told us about in the street department report. I don't know, do either you, Crystal, or Lori have some background information you want to run us through?
I think I included everything in the staff report. If there are any questions, we're happy to answer them. Ms. Hewlett, do you have anything to add?
This was approved in the 2024 budget, with funding up to $50,000, knowing that we would, have to do a lease purchase agreement over a period of time. I did get quotes from NBH Bank as well as Caterpillar for terms, rates, etc. Caterpillar came in with a fixed rate of 6.99%. So over 5 years, the total interest was going to cost us over $26,000. I asked for a 3-year quote, but the rate wasn't changed, so we decided that the NH Bank provided a better source of revenue at a better rate, and stayed within the 50,000 cap that was approved, knowing that we would have to secure funding over the next few years. Questions or discussion?
It was mentioned by the streets department head that the county is looking at buying a somewhat identical piece of equipment.
I think it's Parkville.
Sorry.
Or in the assessment, a inferior piece of equipment that does the same thing.
But it looks like we might end up, the city and Parkville Water might end up owning 2 of the same piece of equipment.
He said he's meeting with them tomorrow.
Yeah. do you feel like that should delay the purchase of the equipment that we've already sussed out and made arrangements to purchase?
Lori, has there been any discussion between the city and Parkville about duplicating equipment?
This is the first I've heard that Parkville is thinking about purchasing the same thing. I definitely think for our purposes, we need the piece of equipment. Now, whether or not we can work out an arrangement with Parkville where if we're not using the piece of equipment, it would prevent, they could save themselves the purchase. That would be great.
Should be nice to know before we end up doing it twice.
Well, if we Parkville would share on the purchase price, right?
Well, either that or work out some kind of a lease borrow agreement between Parkville and the city.
Yeah, I generally think, I'd have to ask Mr. Medina, but I generally think the custom has been that we loan and borrow from other agencies without incurring a cost. So I think, for example, when Mr. Medina talked about the culvert material that he was able to obtain from Colorado Springs, the county loaned us a flatbed trailer for that and didn't charge us. So I don't want to speak and say it's possible without, violating some good relationships we have to say, we could get it and charge Parkville. I want to maintain good relationships, so I don't want to, if they're working with us and not charging us for things, I don't want to offend them and say, oh, we're going to start charging. I don't know the relationship with Parkville.
No, the intent would not be to jeopardize any relationship, it just would be interesting not to at least have a conversation before there's the potential for buying two identical pieces of equipment.
I think the key is that they are not identical.
Based on the street department head's conversation, the intent is to talk them into buying the same piece of equipment that the city's buying. They're looking at something similar, just a lesser version of it. So looks like we'll end up owning two of these. Well, the municipality would end up owning two of these.
Parkville is not the municipality.
Understood. So then maybe it doesn't, if there are two of them in the area, then there are two of them in the area. Just seems interesting that nobody's had that conversation or knew about it.
Well, it was something that was, that Mr. Medina brought up to me today, so I think it's relatively new. Again, I question if that piece of information should change the city's priority to purchase equipment that it needs, and it has quite a bit of use for, coming up. I can't imagine, at least from the number of plans that Mr. Medina had for this piece of equipment this summer, that this would be something that we would just borrow once and again, say if Parkville bought
No, that certainly makes sense. I was just bringing up a point.
I appreciate that, and I think it's a very good point. I think it would have a little, like, if the county were doing it, then absolutely, we should be chatting, but I don't know.
And
Yeah,
I
and-
believe sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, sometimes we do have the same equipment. I know that, the county had a sweeper, we had a sweeper. We thought about selling them our old sweeper because they needed an additional one. So it definitely is a conversation we should be having with Parkville, but it may be that they also have a need in addition to our need.
And I believe it was the sales rep that reached out to Mr. Medina, not Parkville, that said, hey, that, so there was I don't think there was any knowledge of this until really today.
Gotcha. Very good.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that point up, and I hope that you will continue to try to keep these purchases really tight that way. Thank you. Other discussions, concerns, questions?
I'm happy to move forward with the purchase of the equipment, but I think the city should be encouraged to talk to Parkville and see if there's some sharing arrangement that can be made. We are a small community, and where we can share resources, I think so much the better.
Acknowledged.
I think our
Um,
arrangement should be we'll loan it to them whenever they want, as long as they're compacting their digs around town, so they don't.
Oh, maybe this could be, that's a little spin on the
Okay.
developer. Mhm.
No, that's, I,
You are close behind our city administrator in bad puns.
wait, I didn't hear the pun. I didn't hear it.
Was that a dig on their digs?
Yeah. I don't know for sure, but they're either digs or speed. I don't
Or
know.
backfills.
Speed divots.
Or, yeah. Okay,
Ready for a motion?
I'm so ready for a motion, please.
Third moves to approve resolution number 24, series of 2024, resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of an equipment lease/purchase agreement in the principal amount of $138,152.00 between the city of Leadville and NBH Bank, providing lease payments from legally available funds and prescribing other required details.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes. Is that it?
Councilmember Tharp,
Yes.
and Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
I felt like a little shy. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to the third thing that I think will be fairly fast, but has a little bit of words involved, is ordinance number 2, series of 2024. This is the second reading of our short-term rental numerical limit. And being our second reading, it will be a public hearing. So the next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2, series of 2024, chapter 5.12, short-term rental numeric limit. City Council adopted this ordinance on first reading on March 19th, 2024, changing the number of short-term rentals allowed in the city of Leadville to 165. So because this is the second and final reading of the ordinance, we will follow these steps. First, I will ask the city staff to give any presentation or provide any information that they have to City Council about the ordinance. City Council will have the chance to ask questions of staff and have discussions with staff during the staff presentation. Next, I will invite the public to provide any comments on the ordinance that they would like City Council to consider. Any member of the public who wishes to speak on the ordinance may speak one at a time, and each person will have no more than 3 minutes to comment. Finally, council will discuss and vote on the ordinance. So, staff presentation, would you please provide any information?
Mayor and council, as the mayor mentioned, this ordinance adopted on second reading would change the SDR license limit from a percentage of residential parcels in the city to a specific numeric limit. The background on this, there's been a lot of background that we've discussed in work sessions and in first reading, but getting the data from the assessor's office, consistent data year over year, has posed a challenge, and is kind of an administrative nightmare. And council at first reading did compromise on 165 units. The ordinance that you have in front of you, the only change from first reading is filling in the blank to 165. That's the only substantive change. Staff is happy to answer any questions. The memo in your packet on page 124 does not include all the background in this, but that is in the record for the previous city council meetings. There's a suggested motion on page 125.
Any questions for staff? We're all pretty familiar with this. All right, I'd like to turn to public comment. The initial presentation from staff is concluded. Members of the public will now have the opportunity to comment on the ordinance. We will start with I don't think anybody signed up. I will just call on anyone who raises their hand to speak. Remember, each person is limited to 3 minutes for their comments. Is there anyone in chambers who would like to comment on this second reading of this ordinance? Is there anyone online who would like to comment on the second reading of this ordinance? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public comment portion of the public hearing.
Moves to close the public comment portion of the public hearing.
That's nice.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll now proceed to discussion, if any, and a vote. Any discussion or comments on this particular ordinance? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Edwards moves to adopt on second reading ordinance number 2, series of 2024, the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Leadville, amending chapter 5.12 of Title 5 of the Leadville Municipal Code regarding the maximum number of short-term rental licenses available in the city.
Thomas seconds.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tharp,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All were in favor, I'll close the public hearing. Let's move on. Public comments. Yes, Steve.
All right, the little clock thing is after two. Well, I've been sitting here after I got done writing this, trying to remember what I said earlier. And all I remember talking about was Councilmember Edwards and Councilmember Hill briefly. I talked with the mayor about some of these other issues that I had. So we went through three things. I'm just gonna go over the third thing really quickly. To revitalize our police department, we need a police chief with the needed academic and leadership experience credentials. A strong recruitment incentive would be to provide free housing. I urge that the members of city council consider buying a suitable rental residential property on mortgage. Another issue. City council has diminishing time to effectively champion middle-class housing interests. Unremitedly opposing affordable housing, public housing are profit-motivated interests, wealthy investors, and their charismatic representatives. Hence, middle-class housing interests plaintively require city council to effect and maintain conscious and dedicated advocacy. Another issue is respect to Silver King redevelopment. My hope is that the county will require definition of an established numerical commitment to the proposer's claim to prioritize rentals to Leadville Lake County residents, because they said they were also going to be going out of county. Another issue, two related issues. Okay, so I think I'm going to be close to using up a minute here. Are Colorado municipalities such as Silt and Douglas County addressing immigration, and Oregon's ongoing federal court involvement for homeless people impacting the community? City council needs to proactively address these issues and compile information for consideration. I would like to be significantly involved in this. Now, here's an article from the Denver Post, March 27th, which talks about how Boulder changes its citywide encampment policy. And one of the advocates for the homeless said you can't criminalize someone for being unhoused near you. They need to be doing something that is violation of the law, she said. And this has to do with a precedent that was set in the Oregon case, that you have to provide housing, and if you don't provide housing, then they should be able to camp wherever they want, essentially. Well, not wherever they want, but you should be allowed to camp without sanction. Now, there's the Oregon case came up again on yesterday's newspaper. Should homeless people be fined for sleeping outside? That's an ongoing thing on the Supreme Court. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's an article from Friday, April 12, 2024. Silt's Town Board passes non-sanctuary resolution. So Silt has, in tandem with, I think, another municipality, they don't want to be labeled as a sanctuary city. And Douglas County now, if I got that right, was in the paper last couple of days about resisting Colorado's limits, allowances for this. So I think we need to start collecting this documentation and looking at it in the whole so we can formalize some kind of approach to these two problems that are going to be coming our way.
Can I address that briefly?
Please.
I would encourage anyone who's interested in gathering more data on this to fill out and push out the housing needs assessment that's being circulated right now. The deadline is the end of April, and it's the best chance we've had in a long time of getting a really accurate picture of every housing issue, including homelessness, imminent homelessness, and housing instability. So I can definitely send you that link and encourage everybody to, we need as wide a spread as possible because we want an accurate picture of the entire community.
Excellent. All right. Moving right along, mayor's report. I had a bet we were gonna finish at 9:15, so I'm gonna just really fast. I hope you all got a chance to see the eclipse. It was amazing. I went to Arkansas for one weekend. It was incredible.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Councilmember Best, that link is on the City of Leadville's Planning Department's website, if you need to refer someone there, and also on Lake County's website in one of their departments.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's really important, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I've just been emailing it to people. And then finally, I just got an update that the school record for men's pole vault has been broken again. It is now 13 feet 6 inches. Matthew Wilson, if you ever get a chance to see these high school kids vault, it's insane. We are so fortunate to have a coach who works with kids of all abilities and tries to get as many of them into competition as possible. And I'm just tickled to death to see what incredible progress these kids have made. And that is my report. Kelly reports.
I have 2 bits of good news from Bright Start. So I'm on the board of Bright Start, and this year, the city and the county contributed funds to the early childcare fund. And most of that was supposed to go to tuition relief and out-of-pocket tuition support for families. And we got the grant has been awarded, and we got the tuition assistance application out to families today. So within the month, a lot of our families who apply could be getting some tuition relief, which will be I know it'll be a very big deal for some of our families and certainly a help to some others. And then our director gave us a good long notice of her departure at the end of May. And so we've just filled her position with a new director. And we hired internally. We advertised externally, but also ended up hiring internally a person who had been our substitute director. So it's been great to have that continuity of leadership there and just be in a place where the director's departure wasn't a crisis. It feels really good. That's a good place to be.
That is a good place to be. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Just an update from the Advocates of Lake County, and the new homelessness intervention program. Some very positive updates. The building that won the historical award at 115 East 5th is our new office and upstairs shelter. I've been directing this program for only 2 months, but the number of people approaching us now for homelessness assistance, rental assistance, because they're at imminent risk of being homeless is shocking to me. And I think we need more community awareness around this issue. We're using the upstairs shelter for transitional housing and working on master leases with some of the landlords, filling rooms that otherwise would be empty through hostels and short-term rental landlords. So the good news is we're starting to develop resources to help these folks out, but resources are still scarce and a lot needs to be done. That's my report.
So good news followed by sobering news.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Other council reports?
Just a couple things on the Regional Housing Authority. We do have a meeting tomorrow. Anybody wants to attend, it's in room 701 in the Coronado building. And, we do have we talked about a mock lottery. So if anybody wants to see how that is going to work, that's going to be on April 24th. I'm not sure where that's gonna be yet. Other than that, we do have that needs assessment, final report is going to be in June. Housing needs assessment, so. Just a few things on that.
Awesome.
What time is that meeting?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's at 5:30.
Fantastic. Other council reports? Okay, public meetings planner. Don't say anything. We don't have a meeting for the next 2.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, this is
We do have state of community, which is still not on, which is on 30th from 5 to 7.
So it's 5 Tuesdays.
It is, and it's May is a weird month because usually like planning and zoning and city council are staggered, but because of the way that May is, everything's on the same week. Okay. Any additions or comments on the public meeting planner? We do not have a Laura board on May 2nd, just the even months. And that's it. Very good. Any last minute comments, concerns, questions? Well, it is 9:20. I didn't win the bet. The city council meeting is adjourned. Did you guess 9:20?
That's 9:25.
Yeah, we're right in between the two of us. Well, I know, but I don't, so I do not even know that it was a bet. That was my bet. Rebecca.
Congratulations again, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Bye.